The PSA Grinning Bird sale is on, bringing you California's lowest airfares, all 11 PSA cities. Help yourself to any of these 4 super bargains, like the Saturday excursion saves you 35% off your regular airfare. Just leave and return on Saturday. Or how about the weekend family plan? You save 25% on everybody's ticket. No family? Then take a PSA-approved tour and take 25% off your fare. Or fly by the book and save 25%. That's PSA's Weekend Commute Book. A book of 10 tickets must be purchased in advance. All weekend fare discounts exclude traveling on Friday and Sunday PM and certain holidays. Now, during the PSA Grinning Bird sale.
PSA gives you a lift.
San Francisco is a city with a charm that is unique. It's been likened to a Paris, so if this is what you see, jet there on PSA, you know you couldn't pay less than when you travel north with the best. So many high-flying jet flights have we. There's always one that suits you to a T. Yes, there is so much to see in this great golden state, and when you go and see on PSA, you're going great. So jet with PSA, let us spoil you and then spend a Sunday in the park, see Chinatown after dark, see San Francisco on PSA. PSA spoils you for any other airline.
Hi, I'm Jimmy Rogers. Say California is all smiles now, 'cause PSA flies miles and miles now.
Money is really no object with me when I fly PSA. I just hand them the American Express card.
So many flights are waiting all set, almost as if you had your own jet.
So the man at the PSA ticket counter said, your money or your American Express card. So I handed over my American Express card. Of course, he handed it back, along with my ticket.
When PSA gives you a lift,
let PSA give you a charge. Use the American Express credit card when you fly the unofficial state bird to 11 California cities.
Hey folks, how's it going? I hope you're all doing awesome. Hope you're all having a fantastic weekend thus far. Hope you all had an amazing week. It's been quite an interesting week this past week. What with the new administration moving into the Oval Office or moving into the White House, and a whole bunch of things going on. But I hope you're all having a wonderful weekend thus far. Thank you all for taking time to hang out today. Portland Aviation, Jacob Hoffler. Anybody else who's in chat that hasn't chimed in yet, feel free to drop a howdy. Hope you're all doing awesome. Thank you for taking the time to hang out this afternoon. So we are in Seattle, and we're back in the good old XPlane 11 platform. It's been a while since we've flown in XPlane on stream, and it's been a while since we've flown the trusty old FlyJsim 727. This is probably one of my most favorite, if not my most favorite, aircraft for XPlane 11. Just absolutely love flying this airplane. So the reason we're dusting this old thing out of mothballs is because on Tuesday, the 19th of January, the San Francisco International Airport decided to land on one right again for the first time in nearly a year. So it's one of these incredibly rare things that happens once every few years, if at all. And for the first time in over a year, I think they landed on the once again because of these incredibly high, basically gale force gusting winds that come in from the northeast that we'll talk about once we get airborne here. But we're going to have a ton of fun today flying into SFO and dealing with these incredibly strong gusting, basically gale force winds, gusting to about 46 knots at SFO. So I'm going to be using historical weather, obviously, so we can replicate those winds at their most extreme on Tuesday the 19th. The inspiration for the stream, by the way, I want to show you this here real quick because I thought this was super cool. I was initially thinking about just flying in P3D in like the Quality Wing 787 or something. But the inspiration for doing this in the 727 was this picture that I found. So I'm going to pull up my Chrome window. Hopefully y'all can see this. Let me know if you can't for any reason. But this was a picture from back in the late 1980s, believe it or not. You can probably tell from the fact that it's... Actually, you can't see the picture, can you? Hold on one second. Can you see the picture now? Give me 1 second here. It's blank for some reason. Hold on. It'll come. It'll show up, hopefully. If not, tell you what. No, okay, now it's going to show. 1 second. It should show now, hopefully. All right, so Ajit320, how's it going? Will Dewey, how's it going? Hope you're both doing fantastic. Okay, so hopefully y'all can see the picture now. All right, I don't know why it does that. For some reason, I need to make sure that that yellow border is showing. But anyway, this is from back in 1987, I believe. This was from the San Francisco Chronicle Archives. I found an old article that had this picture in it. And this was from back, again, on one of these incredibly odd days where they had these high gusting winds out of the northeast, and so they were forced to land on the ones back in 1987. And this is an old Pan Am 727-200 that is coming right across the 101, the Bayshore Freeway there. And you can probably tell from the cars there, this is from the late 1980s. In fact, I think if you look super close, you can probably find a DeLorean in there somewhere, right? You can probably find a DeLorean in this picture somewhere. But anyway, that's super cool. So this was the inspiration for us going back in time and hopping into the FlyJsim 727 today. So we're going to be flying PSA. PSA, for those of you who don't know, was California's unofficial state airline. And the grinning birds of PSA used to be colloquially referred to as California's state bird, you know, with that super happy smile on the front of the airplane. This was known as California's friendliest, or this was known as the world's friendliest airline back in the day. Once again, folks, we're flying PSA. PSA, the world's friendliest airline.
This fall, PSA makes you smile with savings of up to 60% everywhere we fly. And since PSA has the most non-stop flights throughout the West, you'll be able to go where you want to, when you want to. Nobody serves California like California's airline, PSA.
Smile to smile, catch your smile, PSA.
Fly PSA for the most flights from Los Angeles to San Francisco.
All right, we're gonna have plenty of these jingles and old ads throughout the course of this flight. For those of you that were on our PSA streams featuring the MD-80 a few months ago, you're probably all too familiar with these old ads. We're gonna have plenty of these that we'll check out over the course of this stream. All right, let's go ahead right now and let's talk about our game plan, right? As I mentioned in the description of the video, we are going to be doing some slant whiskey operations. So basically that means we're just going to be flying completely raw data. I do have an INS system in the cockpit, but I'm going to assume that, one second, let me pull on some chill music here. Well, once again, I'm just going to assume that, you know, we're not going to really need to use the INS. Plus, it'll take too long to set up anyway. So we'll just plan on flying using VORs, some high altitude, you know, jet airways, and we'll talk about all of that stuff. For those of you that are coming from our stream the other day featuring the DA62, where we did a lot of IFR, you know, raw data flying, what we're about to do right now should not be too unfamiliar to you. So let me pull up SkyVector here, and we'll talk through our game plan. And I'll catch up on chat as we go, folks. All right, hopefully y'all can see the window now. I do show a little yellow bar around the window, implying that you should all be able to see it. But in case you can't for any reason, let me know. And by the way, let me know as well if the background music that I usually have playing to help us chill out over the course of the stream, in case that gets too loud, too low at any point, just let me know. Okay, so we're flying Seattle down to San Francisco today. Should be about an hour and a half en route. And obviously, since we're flying in an airplane that can cruise up in the flight level 300s, right, we're going to be flying using, or we're going to be planning this route using the high altitude en route charts. So we're going to be flying using jet airways. So, or Juliet Airways, jet airways. Remember, when we flew the DA62, we flew using Victor Airways. Victor Airways go from the surface up to 18,000 feet, and Jet Airways go from 18,000 feet and higher, essentially. That's the difference between Victor Airways and Jet Airways. So, obviously, we're not going to be able to use any RNAV routes, right? So, all of the GPS routes that you see on the flight or on the chart here, like the Q Airways, Tango Airways, all that stuff is completely off limits to us. So we're just going to be using old school jet airways today. So we're going to be departing from Seattle using the Seattle 7 departure. The Seattle 7 departure, let me pull up that chart here real quick, is what we want to use today, primarily because there's no sort of RNAV, GPS, or special equipment requirements. You just need VOR, radio navigation equipment on board, and you're all good to go. So that's why we're doing the Seattle 7. So we're doing the Seattle 7, and then via the Juliet 1 airway from the Seattle VOR onto the Battleground VOR. The distance between Seattle VOR and Battleground is 102 nautical miles. You can find the distance between VORs on an airway by looking for a box with a number in it. So that box there with the number 102 in it, that is the full length of the airway between Seattle and Battleground. So in order to fly that airway, we're going to fly the Seattle VOR 168 radial outbound, and the Seattle VOR has a frequency of 116.8. So I'm going to write that down. So Seattle VOR 116.8. And Battleground is 116.6, and we're going to fly the 345 radial inbound. Now, in order to find my switchover point, I'm going to look in here and see if there's any sort of swap over point indicated. There isn't. So essentially what I'm going to do is midway between Seattle and Battleground, I'm going to switch frequencies. So midway of 102 is basically 56. Let me know if I got the math correct. But 56 miles out from Seattle, we're going to swap frequencies, hop onto the Battleground VOR. And then we're going to continue on the Juliet 1 airway from Battleground all the way down to the Rogue Valley VOR. So I'm going to continue outbound on the 163 radial from Battleground, heading south, and the distance between Battleground and Rogue Valley is 197 nautical miles. So I'm going to continue down until I see this little bracketed line there. You see one end of the line goes towards Battleground, the other end of the line goes towards Rogue Valley. This is 106 nautical miles from Battleground. That's my frequency swap-over point when I'll switch frequencies to the Rogue Valley VOR. So at that point, I'm going to switch frequencies to the Rogue Valley VOR. Rogue Valley is on 113.6, and I'm going to go inbound on the 345 radial to Rogue Valley. So, and this frequency swap-over point is 106 miles. Okay, there we go. And then from Rogue Valley, we're going to continue on the Juliet 501 airway. That's a Juliet 501 airway there, all the way down to the Point Reyes VOR. And the total distance en route, this is probably the longest segment of our flight here. This is 264 nautical miles en route between these two VORs. That's a pretty long distance. Now, you'll notice there is an MEA listed here. The MEA is 22,000 feet. We're going to be cruising at flight level 330, so we're well above that MEA. But this is super interesting. I'm not sure how many of you are too familiar with this. I haven't seen this too often on IFR en route charts, but it's good to note anyway. There is an MEA gap here. Does anybody in chat know what an MEA gap is? Portland says good old Battleground VOR. Indeed, yeah, that is pretty close to your neck of the woods there, Portland. Anybody know what an MEA gap is? An MEA gap essentially is a gap in your potential gap in your signal reception. So if you note, there's 264 whole nautical miles, right, between the Rogue Valley VOR and the Point Reyes VOR. That's a very, very long distance. And when you're at that MEA, if you're cruising at just 22,000 feet, at some point along this airway, there might come a point where you may not be able to be high enough to receive the VOR signals. Essentially what the FAA recommends, in an MEA gap is you continue on the heading you're flying until you can pick up a signal again, and then you keep going en route. But I don't see a frequency swap over point on this airway, right? I don't see one. So essentially midway between Rogue Valley and Point Reyes is when I'm going to be switching frequencies. So midway of 264 is 264 divided by 2, that's 182 nautical miles out from Rogue Valley is when we're going to be switching frequencies. And again, at any point, if we lose signal reception, we'll just continue on the heading we were going on until we can pick up the Point Reyes VOR. Point Reyes VOR is 113.7, that's the frequency, and we're going to be tracking inbound on the 343 radial inbound. Okay, and then at Point Reyes, we're going to be flying the Point Reyes 3 arrival. Once again, the advantage of the Point Reyes 3 arrival, just like the Seattle 7 departure out of Seattle, is that it doesn't have any special equipment requirements, right? You can fly this using an aircraft that has slant whiskey equipment on board, that has radio navigation equipment. So that's what's great about this. All right, so that's basically our route today. Let me catch up on chat here before we go any further. 132 says, well, actually, thanks for catching that, Will. It is 132, not 182. 132, that's correct. So anyway, that's our route today, right? So let's go ahead and hop in the cockpit here, and let's go ahead and get going shortly. All right, I'm going to change the time here, by the way. I'm going to change the time to early in the morning because that was when they were actually departing and landing on the ones during those really high wind conditions. So we'll have a super early morning arrival, which is probably a first for this channel. The other thing I want to do is get my Active Sky client working. So let me pull up Active Sky here. We'll have historical weather, and the historical weather will be nothing like the beautiful clear conditions that we saw in the intro to this video here. So it's going to be nothing like that. It's going to be like this, actually. It's going to be super, super foggy and Pacific Northwesty, if you will, right? So this is your typical sort of the kind of weather you might expect to see in the Pacific Northwest. You know, this is your Pacific Northwest run into a serial killer weather, right? So that's what this weather is. Anyway, this is historical weather for the day that we wanted to fly into San Francisco. Let me go ahead and pull up my my baro setting here in Seattle on this date. 1 second. KSEA. Baro setting was 3048, very, very high pressure. So I'm going to set 3048 here real quick before I forget. Whoops. Okay, there we go. All right, let's go ahead and hop in back here and let's get some things turned on. So let's pull up the checklist. Let's get the battery on. So battery's behind this guard. I just closed the guard and that'll move the battery switch into the on position. Whoops, I totally forgot to get the sounds on. 1 second. I disabled the sounds for the intro to the stream, but I've turned the sounds back on now. And once again, let me know if the sounds are also like either too loud, too low, whatever. And then I'm going to go ahead and connect the ground card here, or the ground, you know, the GPU, the ground power unit. Where's that? That's here. GPU card connected. Let's get the external power on. There we go. And let me check the fuel loads. Carrying about 23,000 pounds. You know, let's carry about 500 pounds extra just to be on the safe side. Gross weight 144, 140. And typically, this is something that I always have to remind myself of, especially if I haven't flown this airplane in a while. But typically, you want to have the fuel evenly distributed between the 3 main tanks. It's not like in a lot of modern aircraft where the center tank is run dry first, then you run fuel off the wing tanks. In this airplane, you run fuel from each tank to each engine. So there's 3 tanks, a left tank, center tank, and a right tank. And you run fuel from each of those 3 tanks to the 3 engines. So there you go. Okay, so there we go. APU ground power on, stall warning check, emergency exit lights armed. Let's go get the emergency exit lights armed there. There we go. Let's get the navigation lights on. There we go. And let's get the logo light on as well. All right, window heat can be turned on apparently. So let's turn those on right now. There we go. Radio radar transponder, it's set to 000 for some reason. Let's go to 2200 for now. I might hop on VATSIM if the situation is attractive, but we'll see what it looks like. And I'm sorry folks, I know I probably missed a ton in chat. I'll try to catch up as soon as I can. And let's go ahead and get the APU started up here. So the APU panel, or the APU controls, are back here. So in order to start the APU, I'm going to move it in the on position momentarily. And then I'm going to move it into the start position and hold it there for a few seconds until I see an exhaust temp rise. There we go. APU should be starting up. So we'll watch the APU start up there. There we go. And let me catch up on chat while that's going on. What else? What did I miss here? Jacob earlier was talking about how bad it is with anti-maskers. Don't get me started, Jacob. Anti-maskers are the bane of our existence here in the States. You know, I can't believe we have coming up on 500,000 people who are anticipated to die in total in the U.S., you know, by the end of next month, and I still can't believe we have people who refuse to believe this is real. So yeah, anti-maskers are the bane of our existence, I think. And it's got to be super bad, especially as a pilot, right? Dealing with folks like that. Jacob says it's always crazy to see how far planes have developed over the years. Yeah, totally. Portland says that is an amazing pick. Yeah, totally. That's why I thought it'd be fun to show you folks that. That is an amazing pick for sure. Jacob says you got to say this plane with a smile looks a bit like it's high or something. I would not be surprised. Okay, we have an exhaust temp stabilization there, so that means that the APU has started. So let's go ahead and close the circuit. And let's close the field circuit as well, and the APU is now on. So that's great. Whoops, let's go back here. APU is now on, and external power, I think, 1 second actually, let me make sure. Essential power on standby. APU circuit is closed. Let's go ahead and disconnect the external power at this point. So, oops, it's over here. I forget which one of these controls that. That one. GPU card disconnected. Fantastic. Okay, APU is on. Alright, so Ancient Star Checklist. Actually, before I do that, let's go ahead and set things up here, up top. So cruising altitude can be set to flight level 330. Cabin altitude, let's set it to 7,000. Landing altitude, 100 is fine. And flight ground switch to ground, that is good. Packs can be turned on for now while we get ready to start. Passenger oxygen system normal. Galley power can be left off for now. And let's get the let's do the fuel switches in a second here. So what I want to do now is I want to go ahead and set my my frequencies here. There we go. Let's set our frequencies. So 114.6, correction, 116.8. That's our first frequency, right? That's the Seattle VOR, 116.8. And in standby nav 1, I'm going to put in the the battleground VOR, which is 116.6. So I'm going to tune 116.6 there. And then I'm going to tune in 116.6 in nav 2 as well, so I have that there. And then I'm going to put in the Rogue Valley VOR, 113.6 in standby nav 2, 113.6. Okay, there we go. And then let's go ahead and hop to the Avitab here, and let's talk about our game plan, right? So we're located at the South Terminal, the South Satellite Terminal. I am not too familiar with what gates PSA used way back in the day, right? So, and plus, this is Drzewiecki Seattle airport scenery, and for that matter, Seattle city scenery. So, you know, obviously, a lot of the new stuff, like the pedestrian walkway over the taxiway there, all this stuff is completely new. It wasn't around when PSA used to fly here. So I figured, since we were using such a modern scenery, we might as well just park someplace anywhere that at least looked good, if it was not necessarily, even if it was not necessarily period appropriate, right? So anyway, we're at the South Satellite Terminal, and let's take a look at the winds. I think the winds were favoring, yeah, winds were calm but out of the south, so winds were favoring a departure on 16, so we'll depart off of 16 left. We'll taxi via Bravo to hold short of 16 left for departure, and then we're doing the Seattle 7 departure, right? So give me 1 second here. Let me turn down the background music there just a smidgen. Just a couple of dots there. There we go. That's better. All right, so we're going to be departing off of 16 left. Let's take a look at the departure procedure. We're going to climb on a heading of 165 outbound on the 161 radial from Seattle. And then we're going to maintain whatever assigned altitude is and expect radar vectors to our assigned route. I'm not going to be on VATSIM for this flight, so I'm probably just going to have some live ATC audio to liven things up in the background. I'm not going to be on VATSIM just because we're not using live weather. We're using historical weather, right? So that we can do that challenging circle to land at SFO later. So we'll just stay offline and use live ATC. I'll cue that up here in a little bit. But that's basically it. So what I want to do is I want to tune in the 161 radial here. So let me go ahead and tune that in. 161 radial out of Seattle. And then I want to put my heading to a heading of 165. So my heading bug there goes to 165. So we're going to fly the heading of 165 until we pick up that radial. Then we'll fly that radial outbound. All right, so that's good. And the other thing I want to do is I want to set my same sort of altimeter setting on my co-pilot side as well. I don't have a virtual co-pilot who'll do this for me, unfortunately. Okay, so there we go. Let me catch up on chat here, folks. Portland says, yep, that type of weather is pretty common in winter mornings. Not so much in the summer, though. Probably more common in Seattle and Portland. Yeah, totally makes sense there, Portland Aviation. Obviously, right? Because you've got Puget Sound and Elliott Bay right there. So you've got you know, you've got the cool cool ocean air that comes off Puget Sound, and that'll basically condense and cause all this fog. Whereas you're not that close to water, besides the Columbia River, obviously, in Portland, right? So that kind of makes sense. Sorry, I meant to, there we go, align and nav. There we go. Yeah, just so that I have at least a, what I did here was I just had the INS system at least give me a what do you call it? A latitude longitude readout, just so we have that for some added situational awareness. Don't necessarily need it, but good to have anyway. Weather radar should have been turned off earlier. We totally fried we totally fried everybody who was on the ramp here that was in that direction on the other side of the nose cone. But hey, you know, despite the fact that we fried all our ground crew, at least we did it with a smile, right? At least this airplane fried the ground crew with a big happy smile on his face. Once again, folks, we're flying PSA. PSA. More planes, less fancies. Just gonna queue up an ad here.
Today, some airlines go out of their way to please you.
Time for the movie.
I don't want a movie.
I ordered steak.
I don't want a movie.
But I wanted steak.
I don't think he wants the movie.
At PSA, we never lost sight of what an airline should be. So at PSA, we give you more planes and less fancies. We give you low fares, not fanfares. PSA, our smiles aren't just painted on.
That's right, folks. PSA, our smiles are not just painted on. Painted on. Get it? Get it? Okay, anyway, let's go ahead and start up the engines here. We'll get going in just a hot minute. Okay, so let's queue up that checklist once again. Actually, I've got a checklist right in front of me that I can use. I'm going to use this instead. Okay, before start checklist, cockpit preparation complete, anti-skid on. I think that's up here. Alright. Stall warning checked, emergency exit lights armed, passenger signs can be turned on. Where are the passenger signs? There, oh. There they are, passenger signs on, seat belts and no smoking signs on. Flight instruments, altimeters, flight directors set and checked. I'm going to set my flight directors here. There we go, and heading. Perfect. Compasses synced and cross-checked. Compasses look good. Radios, radar, transponder set and standby. Start levers all to cut off. That is looking good to me. Parking brake is set. Rudder and aileron trim free, set 0. Fuel quantity. Let's check the fuel quantity. Everything is looking good here. We have about 23,000 pounds in total on board. That is looking good. Let's test the fuel quantity here on each of the 3 gauges. That's looking good. Alright. And hydraulics, interclosed, pressure and quantity normal. So that's done, and our papers, you know, the logbook, registration documents, all that is on board. INS, all that's good. Beacons can be turned on. So beacons coming on there. And that's all done. Hydraulic A pump switches as required. Let's get the hydraulic A pump switches on. They are indeed on. Galley power can be turned off. Galley power is off, and packs can be turned off. So let me go ahead and do that. Packs off. Perfect. Alright, and start pressure, let's make sure we have more than 30 psi. That's up here. We do have more than 30 psi. That's good. Our before start checklist is complete. Alright, let's get our... Actually, I don't know why this was not included in the before start checklist, but all our boost switches come on. Fuel boost switches coming on. Forward, aft on the left tank. Forward, aft. There's 2 forward and 2 aft switches on the center tank, and there's 2... Correction, there's 1 forward and 1 aft switch on the right tank. So all those switches are on. That's looking good. And you know what? Let's leave the hydraulic B system off for now. We'll turn that on once we push back. So let's go ahead and request better pushback here. So there's better pushback. Let's go ahead and Let's just go ahead and start our pushback.
Please show me where you want
So
to
we'll
go.
push back to, oh boy, you can't even see things in better pushback. That's how dense this fog is. But I'm pretty sure round about here is where the taxi center line is. So I'm going to push back to right about there. Except plan,
Ground
please.
to cockpit. Tow is driving up.
It's pretty dense fog here. John Patton, how's it going? Will says, hopefully with vaccines we will start to get back to normal around the world. Totally will. I'm hoping so as well. We'll see what happens. I am hoping that it will get better. Let me spend my speed bugs here real quick. Haven't done that yet, I don't think. We're doing a flaps 5 takeoff. We speeds 135, 135, 147. And our takeoff E-burst 2.15. Takeoff N1 97.4%. Now what's interesting is the takeoff N1 is supposed to take into account the outside air temperature and the local altimeter setting, but I've noticed it doesn't really do that. So this number is always higher, I've noticed, than the actual flight manual for the 727-200. But it's fine. I've never had an issue with blowing out the engines at this power setting, so we're okay there. Okay, getting ready to push back here. And let's go ahead and unguard the number 2 start switch. We'll move that to ground once we're pushing back here. I'm sure the beacon is on. Indeed it is. That's looking good. Okay, we're looking great here. Let me catch up on chat. Whoops.
Tow connected and bypass in and service. Release parking brake.
Okay, we're ready to push back here. Let me catch up on chat real quick as well. Portland says, yeah, the Columbia is also probably why the airport is often foggy while most... Yeah, that's a good point there, Portland. Water certainly makes that that difference, doesn't it? For sure.
Pushback. And you may start engines.
Okay, starting pushback. Once again, just going to make sure I've got 30 psi bleed pressure there. That is looking good. Let's go ahead and start up number 2. Number 2 to ground. There we go. Gonna watch for an N2 rise. Once N2 hits maximum motoring, about 20%, I'm gonna go ahead and move the start lever into the on position. There we go, start lever into the on position. Gonna watch for an exhaust temp rise there. And we've got fuel flow, N1 rising, and that engine is starting up. Let's listen to the sound of that engine starting up here. Just gonna turn up the sounds here just a smidgen. There we go. You can see some of the heat blur effect as that engine starts up. I love the sound of these old low bypass ratio turbofans. One of the very earliest turbofans, I believe. Although to call with this engine as a turbofan, in my opinion, is a bit of a stretch. It's very, very low bypass ratio. I think it might be 1.1. Actually, it might be even less than 1.1. Might be 1.0 something. It's a super low bypass ratio turbofan. Essentially, it's a turbojet. It's really just a turbojet. But since there's a little bit of bypass air, we've agreed to call it a turbofan. Okay, good start, it looks like, on number 2. Oil pressure light is out, starter cut out. Let's go ahead and close the guard there, and let's start up number 1. Start sequence is 2... Correction, actually it's 2, 3, and 1, right? Or is it 2, 1, and 3? Doesn't really matter.
Set parking brake.
Let's start up number 3 there. Parking brake set. Watching an N2 rise once again.
Connecting tow. Stand by.
N2 coming up on 20%. There's 20%. Start lever on. We got fuel flow, exhaust temp rise, and N1 starting to come up, hopefully. Where's exhaust temps? Come on. Give me an exhaust temp rise. Disconnect and hand signals, please. Nope. Actually, that didn't work for some reason. So let's go ahead and... Oh, did I get the... Let's try that again. Into ground. Okay. Start lever to on.
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the left. We'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
That's not working for some reason. Let's try number 1 first, and then we'll try number 3. Not sure what's going on exactly there. Let's check bleed pressure, make sure we have sufficient bleed pressure here. Yeah, we got plenty of bleed pressure from the APU, so I'm not sure what's going on there. APU bleeds are open, so that's good. Let's just make sure that the maintenance system isn't showing anything out of kilter here. Nope, everything is looking good. Let's give that engine a rest. Let's start up number 1 first, and we'll try number 3 after that. So number 1 into ground, there we go. And there we go, we got N2 rise. As N2 comes up on 20%, we'll go ahead and get the start lever into the on position for the number 1 engine. And there we go, we got an exhaust temp rise, we got fuel flow, we got N1 coming up. So at least for the number 1 engine, everything seems to be okay. Let's watch this engine start up here. Waiting for the oil pressure light or the oil light to go out there. There we go, oil light is out. Should have a starter cut out any moment now. There we go, and engine 1 is stabilizing. That's a good start on number 1. Let's give the number 3 engine a break for about another 30 seconds or so while I catch up on chat. And wait for the number... and we'll check out the number 1 engine here. Look at all that smoke there. That's another reason it's so easy to confuse these engines with turbojets, right? Because they produce a tremendous amount of smoke. Not something that you typically associate with turbofans. Let me change the sim time here just a smidgen, folks. I think we like it when there's a little bit of airport lighting out, so a little bit darker is better. 1 second, not that dark. That's better. Okay, let's try the number 3 engine again. Hopefully this time it works. Okay, number 3 to ground. There we go. And there we go, we got an N2 rise. As we come up on 20% N2 there, let's go ahead and get the start lever on. And there we go, now we got an exhaust temp rise, we got fuel flow. Oh boy. Come on. Come on. Give it to me. What is going on with number 3? Number 3 just does not want to start up today. I don't know why. Number 3 just does not want to start today for some reason. Let me check to make sure that... Yeah, I've got my boost pumps on. I've got sufficient fuel in the number 3 tank. That's good. I'm not sure what's going on with the number 3 engine. It just does not want to start for some reason. Let's give it about 30 seconds here. I'll catch up on chat while we're waiting for it to start. Let's see. What did I miss here? John Patton earlier was saying this aircraft looks slightly complex. You're used to your glass cockpit. This is a whole different animal there, John Patton. It's all steam gauges, all round dials. You know, there's nothing glass here except for the glass covers for each of these instruments, right? So that's about it. I do love the detail that's modeled in this airplane, though. I mean, look at this. You can see all the reflections off the glass covers for the gauges, and you can actually see where the gauges, you know, kind of protrude out of the panel. That's super cool, isn't it? That's really cool. Will says, although back in a national lockdown here with schools and restaurants shut, you haven't been flying for a while. Yeah, totally there, Will. Especially with that new variant of the COVID virus that I think just yesterday, if I remember correctly, didn't Boris Johnson announce that just yesterday that that it's actually supposedly more deadly than the original coronavirus variant. So yeah, that's another unfortunate twist, right? That we really did not need. That's an unfortunate twist. You know what? I'm thinking I'm just going to turn the maintenance system off. Or the failure system. I'm just going to reset it. Let's try the number 3 engine again. I don't know why it's not starting. There's got to be something I'm doing wrong here. Let's start up the number 3 engine again. So number 3 to ground. There we go. It's in ground. And hope to God it starts up now. Okay. So there is N2 coming up there. Fuel lever into the on position. Exhaust temp coming up. But you notice how it does that? The exhaust temp comes up a little bit, and then it just kind of starts going back down. So what's going on with number 3? I'm so confused. The number 3 engine just does not want to start for some reason. I am so confused by this. What is going on? This is bizarre. This is like Bizarro World. What is going on with the number 3 engine? Just gonna check everything here, make sure that I don't have any settings that I should not have had, right? Now, of course, we're gonna end up with a fuel misbalance as well. Low pressure there. Standby essential bus. It's almost like it just does not want to light off. Tell you what, let's do this real quick. I'm just going to turn off the failures, and hopefully that fixes it. I am super confused by what's going on with the number 3 engine, because I've never had this issue before. It would not be a DJ Aviator stream without at least something going wrong, right? So let's try it again. Okay, number 3 to ground. And come on, baby. Let's get you started this time. Okay, introducing fuel flow there. And nope, again we've got that same issue, it looks like. Yep, once again, it just does not want to start up. This really sucks. What is going on with this engine? Anybody got extensive experience in the FlyJsim 727 that might know what's going on? Nope. None of the fire handles are pulled. Nothing like that is going on. So I don't know what's going on here. This is like super strange. Whatever's going on with the number 3 engine. Maybe we want to do a cross bleed start here instead. Galley power is off, packs are off, start pressure is good. We might want to do a cross bleed start instead, so tell you what. Let me figure this out here. Let's close the engine 1 and 2 bus ties there. We might just do a cross bleed start here. And see if that helps with anything. Start valve. Okay, hold on. I think I gotta have all the bleeds open here for a cross bleed start. Let's try a cross bleed start. So I'm gonna get the engine N1 up to about 50%, something like that, I think, is what I need. And let's see if we can crank up the number 3 engine. Whoops. Hold on. There we go. Ground. Okay. Fuel flow. Oh, is this gonna work? Oh my god, it almost worked, and then the exhaust temp started dropping again. This is so weird. It's... Start valve is open. It just does not want to start for some reason. I've never had this issue before. This is super weird. I've never had this issue before. Why does that engine not want to start, right? What is going on? What is going on here? Why does that engine not want to start? This is super weird. Perhaps check XPlane 11 settings. Is there a failures menu? Yeah, let's... I don't think I had any failures enabled, but let's check anyway. Engines. Failures. Always working. Yeah, everything is working here. That's all looking good. Start. Oh! Hung start on number 3. So... Thanks for that, Will. I appreciate it. So always working. There we go. Apply changes. Okay, that'll fix it. It was a hung start. So remember how I started at number 3 and then I was like, maybe I should start at number 1. It was a hung start. So thank you for that, Will. Much appreciated. I would never even have thought about doing that. So I went to engines, looked at the start, and saw that yeah, it was a hung start. Clogged nozzles on number 3. It's so cool that's modeled, but on the other hand, it kind of sucks that the failures system did not show me anything in the reports there. But thanks for that, Will. Much appreciated. Okay, you know what? We're going to do this by the book. We're going to give it a full 30 seconds, and I'll catch up on chat while we're doing this. Heavy Driver was asking if this was Gatwick and Portland got you there. Okay, yeah, totally, Heavy Driver. It is Seattle Tacoma International Airport up in the Pacific Northwest. And yeah, you know, I can totally understand your confusion there, right? Because in the fog, it is super hard to tell anything about this airport, right? You can't tell anything about where we're located, given how foggy it is up here in the Pacific Northwest. As I was saying at the start of the stream, this is serial killer weather, right? This weather like this is part of the reason the Pacific Northwest has a reputation as being the serial killer capital of North America. Anyway, okay, let's go ahead and try number 3 now. But I do appreciate that, Will. Much appreciate you catching that. It's super cool that failure is modeled, I gotta tell you, it's super cool. Okay, once again, N2 rising. Let's see if we get lucky this time. Coming up on 20% there. Start lever to on. Oh, and look at that. Look at that. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. As the old Navy SEAL mantra goes, right? So there we go. We got exhaust temps climbing there. Good fuel flow. N1 coming up. We've got the old pressure light go out. And we've had a starter cutout. And looks like a good number 3 stabilizing. That is fantastico. Fantastico. I don't know how you say that. However you say fantastic in Italian or Esperanto. The universal language, right? Okay, good start there. Let's go through our after start checklist. Actually, one thing I want to do, folks, real quick, is since I screwed up here with the fuel settings, I'm just gonna adjust my fuel balance there. Okay, there we go. That's better. Just gonna adjust my fuel balance a little bit artificially because of the screw up. Okay, good start. Let's go ahead and close the generator switches there, and let's go ahead and pull up the after start checklist there. Okay, after start checklist. Pitot heat can come on. Pitot heat is here. Pitot heat coming on. Pitot heat off lights are out. Flight instruments set for departure. Flight controls can be checked. Let's go ahead and pull up the yokes. Let's do full left, full right, full up, full down. And by the way, I'm checking the position of the control surfaces using this old steam gauge here, right? So full left, full right. I can't really see that, but I can see the elevator position. Full up, full down, neutral, full left, and full right. On the rudder, neutral. So was flight controls check is complete. Speed brake, let's go ahead and check that. So actually, speed brake, I just want to check that it's, you know, fully retracted. The speed brake lever is in the down position. Stab trim is set for takeoff. Indeed it is. Flaps set for takeoff, so we'll do a flaps 5 takeoff, 2 notches. Galley power can be turned on, so we'll go back here, get the galley power on. There we go. Electrical system, no lights, everything is looking good there. One thing I want to do, by the way, because I was taught this trick recently, is... how do I do this? Synchronize when lights are out. You know what? We're not going to do it right now. But there's a trick to set the frequency from each generator, but we're not going to worry about that for right now. It's super cool. Apparently these lights will flash at a certain cadence to indicate whether or not your generator frequency is set correctly. Kind of cool. Okay, galley power is on. Fuel heat is off. Hydraulics, pressure and quantity normal. Hydraulic A and B systems are all on. Pressure set for cruise altitude. Flight ground switch to flight. Number 2 bleeds can be closed at this point. There we go. And EPR and airspeed bugs, we've said that earlier. Let's go ahead and turn off the APU. APU is turned off. There we go. That's all looking good. Tails kit is out. That'll retract, I think, automatically once we get airborne. And yeah, after takeoff checklist is complete. Let's get the taxi light on and we'll start taxiing out here. Taxi light coming on. Runway turn-off lights can be turned on as well. All right. Let's get going here. It's fantastico, says Heavy Driver. Thank you for that. Heavy Driver apparently is well versed in Italian. Although, imagine if you decided to travel to Europe as one of you know, our stereotypical ugly Americans, right? Like myself, and you decided to travel to Europe, and you decided that Esperanto is one of the Romance languages. Imagine using Esperanto in Europe as an American. How well would that go over? Anyway, let's start taxiing out here. I forgot we do have the nose wheel tiller there, so we're going to use that. So our taxi today is we're just going to go down this taxi lane. We're going to hop on Bravo. We'll take Bravo all the way up to hold short of 16 left in the fog. So this is going to be crazy. And let's set our initial altitude. You know what? Actually, we're offline today, so we'll just go ahead and set our final cruise altitude here of 330 in the altitude selector. So let's go ahead and set that 330. And what was our V2 again? V2 was 146. So I want to set V2 plus 15 of about 161 there in the speed bugs. So there we go. That's going to be my first sort of climb out speed. Actually, I think it's V2 plus 10. So we'll set 156. Let's hang her right here onto Bravo. We'll take Bravo all the way down to hold short of 16 left. And by the way, this traffic that you see moving around on the airport, you might have noticed there's some very, very shady figures moving in the fog. Those are live traffic airplanes. So I gotta remind myself to turn these off. It's super cool looking at them in the intro and everything, but I'm gonna turn them off because once we actually get airborne, as you can imagine, it'll get distracting having to deal with that. So I'm going to turn that off right now. Okay. All right. Just going to keep taxiing down Bravo here. Let me catch up on chat as we get going. I'm sorry, folks. I know I've been terrible about catching up on chat. Portland says Hong Kong also has a bridge like that. Yeah, I did hear about that. That's kind of new, right? The Hong Kong bridge like that. Portland says the sound of those engines is amazing. Sounds very similar to the F4 Phantom. I would not be surprised. You know, these are super loud engines. You know, what was funny was back in the day when Eastern Airlines acquired their 727s, they used to refer to their 727s at Eastern Airlines as what do they call them? Whisper jets. That was the term that Eastern Airlines had for their 727s. Whisper jets. Can you imagine an era when an airplane as loud as a 727 was actually considered quiet? It's pretty amazing, you know, how different the times were back then, right? It's pretty amazing. Heavy Driver says that the notion that mutation is deadlier has not been proved scientifically yet. Gotcha. Okay. Will Dewey says maybe the engine oh, that was earlier. Yeah. Hey, thanks once again, Will, for that catch, because we would have been stuck for quite a while with me just sort of going round and round in circles trying to figure it out. Given my relative inexperience with XPlane 11, this is not the platform that I use as much as I use P3D or even MSFS these days. So if it wasn't for you, my friend, I would have gone round and around in circles, scratching my head, trying to figure out what was causing that issue. So I'm glad you stepped in there with something I would never even have thought of doing. All right. Portland says maybe quiet up at the front of the cabin. Yeah, it's super quiet up front though. That's totally true, obviously, because that's one of the advantages of having engines on the tail, like with an airplane like this. The MD-80 is like this as well. It has a reputation for being notoriously quiet. It's so quiet that, the only indication you get of an engine failure in the MD-80 at least, right, is watching the gauges indicate an engine failure. You're not actually going to hear the difference in the front of the cabin, or in the front of the cockpit, right, because it's so far forward, the wind noise is overpowering. So anyway, we're holding short here. We're ready to go. Once again, let's talk through our departure procedure. We're going to depart on a heading of 161 until, correction, we're going to depart on a heading of 165 until we intercept the 161 radial outbound. And at a certain point, we're going to tune in the 168 radial to the south, and we're going to fly the 168 radial to join the Juliet 1 airway down a battleground. So that's going to be our plan. Let's get the weather radar on there. Weather radar coming on. Let's get the transponder squawking Mo Charlie. Actually, TARA is fine there. Let's get the auto brakes to RTO. There we go. And let's do our before takeoff checklist here. Anti-iced as required. Pitot heat is on. Flight instruments, radio set for departure. Let's confirm that we have 116.8 tuned in, nav 1. The 161 radial is tuned in on the HSI there. Speed brake checked. Flaps or stabilizer trim set for takeoff. Flaps 5 degrees, and we've got green light. The green light indicates slats are out, just like in the 737, right? You typically say flaps 5 green light or flaps 15 green light. The green light is the slats. By the way, this airplane, let's talk about this real quick because this is super cool about this airplane. For its time, it had one of the most complicated flap slat systems imaginable. And it was super awesome, right? Because this airplane could get in and out of some really, really short fields. And that was one of the benefits of the 727 back then. It could get out of some really short runways. And the other benefit of having the engines on the tail is that you had no engines or pylons on the wings that could cause, aerodynamic, that could result in any sort of aerodynamic trade-offs, right? Like you had the 737. So this wing could be designed exactly the way you needed for high-speed flight and cruise, and at the same time, with the Kruger flaps on the Kruger slats and flaps on the leading edge and the Fowler flaps on the trailing edge, it could be optimized both for high-speed flight in cruise with very low drag, and also super efficient, high drag, high lift approaches into short runways. So it's super cool the way this airplane was designed. Anyway, that's all looking good. Flaps 5 green light, auto brake RTO, galley power is on. Electrical no lights, essential bus, there we go. Set in standby, or essential power set is standby. Let's see, fuel heat is off, hydraulics pressure and quantity normal. Elevator rudder lights off, APU is off, flight ground switch to flight, indeed it is. Air condition and pressure number 2 bleeds closed, set for takeoff. Cockpit door is locked. EPR airspeed bug set. Takeoff briefing is completed. Before takeoff checklist complete to the line. Let's do the before takeoff checklist after the line. Start switches to flight, transponder, TARA. Strobe and landing lights can be turned on. Let's do that right now. Strobes, landing lights on, and strobe lights coming on. There we go. CSD oil cooler off. Auto pack trip switch normal and normal or cutout. We've got it in cutout for now. We can leave it on. That's good. So that's all looking good. Okay, before takeoff checklist complete. Let's line up here and we'll get going. Will Dewey says it's a service that you as a moderator provide. Well, I'm grateful for that there, Will. I'm always grateful when folks help out that way. That's always nice to see. Okay, let's line up here. We'll get going. We're flying offline, but even if I were to check final, there's nothing to see with this super dense fog. As I said, this is your typical Pacific Northwest serial killer weather, right? So there you go. Okay, let's line up here in the fog. And we'll get going shortly. So we're going to set 97.4% N1 takeoff power. Gonna line up here, straighten out, tap on the brakes momentarily. Let's do a final check here, just make sure everything is looking good. And let's go ahead and start rolling here. We'll get going. Okay, takeoff power will set. Let's advance N1 to about 55%. Make sure that all 3 engines are stabilizing. And let's go ahead and set takeoff power of 97.4% approximately. Okay, there's 97%. Airspeed alive.
80 knots.
80 knots.
B1. Rotate.
Rotate. V2, positive rate, gear coming up. And let's maintain about V2 plus 10 in the climb here. We're going to climb out and heading of 165 like I mentioned. Climbing out in the fog here, gear coming up, there we go. And you're just going to watch for that radial to, or that CDI needle to start centering there before we track outbound of the 161 radial. There's the needle coming in, so we'll go ahead and turn to heading of about 161 there, and we'll track that radial outbound. Okay, we're through 1500 feet AGL there. Let's go ahead and lower the nose. We'll accelerate to 250 knots, and we'll climb out at 250 knots here up to 10,000 feet. There we go. It's going to lower the nose, accelerate. Let's get flaps 2 there, and let's get flaps up. So flaps and slats are being retracted. Going to climb out at approximately 250 knots there. Can't really see a whole lot in the fog, or I'd give you guys some flybys. Actually, let's do a quick flyby here. That's super cool. Just kind of emerging out of the fog. That's super cool. Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and track the radial outbound there. And looks like we should climb about the fog here. It's just a little bit of fog, kind of low-lying fog that's hovering above the ground here at SeaTac. Okay, let's get the autopilot on, take a load off here. So, autopilot engaged, IAS hold there, and let's go to VOR loc there. That's good. Yep, nav loc mode engaged. So we'll fly the 16 radial outbound. We'll fly the 161 radial outbound for now. And let me go ahead and reduce thrust here to climb thrust. Climb thrust is about 92%. I forgot to do that earlier. Don't want to overstress the engines. So focused on tracking that radial that I lost track of setting climb thrust. Okay, gear handle to the off position. Climbing out at 250 knots. Climbing through 6,900 feet there. And now let's go ahead and tune in the 168 radial. The 168 radial outbound. So we'll tune in the 168 radial. Have the autopilot track that radial outbound, and we'll fly that to join the Juliet 1 airway towards Battleground. So there we go. There's that needle coming in. We're tracking that outbound. Fantastic. All right. Just going to back off the thrust there just a little bit to go down to 92%. And let's do our after takeoff checklist. No smoking seatbelt signs can be left on for now. Anti-ice as required. Gear up and off, no lights. Flaps up, no lights. Auto pack trim, switch, cutout. Indeed it isn't cutout. There it is. Hydraulics pressure and quantity normal. There we go. And pressurization system checked. Everything is doing what it's supposed to. Okay, we're through 10,000 feet there. Let's go ahead now and accelerate to 300 knots. Actually, somewhere between 290 and 300. Let's do 300, actually. 300 is fine. And we'll climb out at 300 knots. And let's get the landing lights off. Should have gotten the taxi and turn-off lights off as well. That's great. And yeah, we're doing great here. Climbing out at about 300 knots, climbing through 10,000 feet. And we're tracking outbound on the 168 radial from the Seattle VOR. Okay, awesome. Let's do a quick flyby here. Look at that. That looks beautiful. Hopefully, if the cloud layers are low enough, we should get some spectacular views of Mount Rainier. And if we're lucky, we might even get some views of, what do you call it? We might even get some views of Mount St. Helens later, if the clouds clear a little bit further to the south. All right. And it looks like I'm all caught up on chat, believe it or not. How about that? That almost never happens. That almost never happens. Flight director should have been set to nav loc mode. There we go. That's good. And pitch mode, I think I can... Actually, you know what? Let's just turn the flight director off, because that's just going to distract me and confuse me. There we go. Faded Fonzie, how's it going? Faded Fonzie says he used to work for a U.S. cargo company that used to fly these birds. Sadly retired. How about that, Faded? Yeah, it is a tragedy that these birds are going out of service as quickly as they have. I gotta tell you, there's something about these old school tri-jets, right? There's a certain nostalgia factor to them. And you know, the other thing about flying these airplanes, it's real flying, right? It's not like all this fancy fly-by-wire nonsense that you have these days. Back then, you know, this was what pilots back then might have described as real flying, right? You know, everything had to be muscled around, right? You had to put a lot of muscle into your control movements and your control inputs in order to get the airplane to do what you wanted it to do. And that's the thing about doing this approach. You know, so we've done the SFO 1 right approach, as some of, you know, our regular viewers on stream can tell you, probably a million times in this channel. But the reason I wanted to do it in the FlyJsim 727 and XPlane 11 with winds at 38 gusting to 46, which is absolutely nuts. The reason I wanted to do it with those gale-force winds is because if you can do it in this bird, you can do it in anything. It is one of the most difficult things imaginable. I did a quick practice run earlier, and I gotta tell you, it is heart-stopping. It is so challenging, because we're gonna have tons of wind shear. We're gonna have a ton of turbulence, just like it was in real life, right? On the 19th when they had the landings on 1 right. So it's going to be super challenging in this airplane. Okay, with true transition level there, or transition altitude, 18,000 feet, so altimeters can be reset to 29902 on both the first officer and the captain's side. And is there a standby altimeter? There it is. There's standby altimeter. That can also be set to 29902. Okay, climbing out at 300 knots, climbing through 18,000 feet. Just going to bump the throttle up there just slightly. What I want to do when I don't have an auto throttle in this airplane, right? And I don't have any sort of like throttle protection. So in order to avoid like automatic sort of throttle protection, right? Like you would in a fancy Airbus. So what I want to do when I'm controlling my throttle is to make sure I'm monitoring where I am with my N2, N1, and also my exhaust temps. Make sure that I'm not going into the cautionary arc, or heaven forbid, the red line. Make sure I'm not exceeding the red line or going into the cautionary arc when I'm making my throttle control inputs. So I can bump it up slightly there to about 92-93% N1, and that should be good enough of a climb power setting. Okay, we're doing great here. All right, folks, doing great. And the airplane should automatically go into alt-cell mode, I believe. Actually, no, it's not. I'm going to arm it. Okay, alt-cell armed. And we're going to level off at flight level 330. The one thing I wanted to do was... what was my overall distance again between the Seattle and Battleground VORs? 102 miles. So about 56 miles out. 56 miles out there on the DME readout is when I'm going to swap frequencies to the Battleground VOR, and then we'll track the 345 radial inbound to Battleground. The opposite of 345 is 165, right? So we're gonna do a course of 165, tracking the 345 radial inbound. So that's gonna be our plan. Let's get some cinematic shots on the outside here, and I'll catch up on chat. Will says you're afraid you need to get some sleep. Absolutely, Will. Thanks for hanging out. Yeah, we'll catch you next time. Will, I might be streaming again tomorrow, very, very likely. This weekend turned out to be surprisingly conducive for streaming. The weather is not so great where I'm at, so as opposed to going outside and putting up with not so great weather, I figured let's do a little bit of streaming. Wow, look at that happy bird there. That's a super happy looking bird. But I probably will do some streaming tomorrow as well. We might be back in P3D or MSFS, I'm not sure which. We'll see what I'm in the mood for tomorrow, but we'll probably do a lot more kind of raw data navigation, and we might do a challenging approach or two. We'll see. But anyway, we'll catch you tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out so far. Faded Fonzie says, remember one time this captain, there's 56 miles there. I'm going to catch up on that here in a second there, Faded Fonzie. Let's go back into the turn knob. Let's go back in the turn knob position on lateral navigation. Let's switch frequencies to the Battleground VOR. I'm going to tune in the 165 radial. Sorry, the 165 course, which is the 345 radial inbound to Battleground. So now we're flying inbound to Battleground, frequencies swapped, and we're continuing on the Juliet 1 airway. Awesome. Okay, let's go back into some cinematic shots here. And by the way, let me know if the engine volumes are a bit too loud and I can turn them down. Unfortunately, I can never get the requisite feedback regarding how loud my volumes are in my headphones that I'm using. So I'm relying on you, my dear audience, to tell me if it's too loud, too low, and we can adjust accordingly. Okay, so Faded Fozzie was saying, you remember one time this captain asked how his load was looking. You told him it was a nil cargo flight, then he said, nice, watch this takeoff. Captain took off, raised his gear about 20 feet, leveled off, flew the entire runway length, and then at the runway end, pitched up probably 20-25 degrees and rocketed out of there. Everyone went crazy. Yeah, I can totally imagine there, Faded. You know, I've done that in a small airplane. Like, I've done that in a DA-20 once. I've done that in a Piper Pawnee. That was super fun, because a Piper Pawnee has like 200 plus horsepower, right? I think it's like 230, if I'm not mistaken, horsepower. I've done that as well in a Super Cup, so I know of that you speak. It's a lot of fun doing those passes where you build up speed going down the full length of the runway, and then you just launch like a rocket, right? You convert all that speed into vertical motion, and it's super fun. It's a lot of fun for sure. Look at that smile there. This is a super happy looking bird, folks. This is a super happy looking bird. Once again, folks, we're flying PSA. PSA, the world's friendliest airline.
California, we know you well. We're there when you need us. We're there where you need us. With more flights to more major cities in California than any other airline. So the next time you're flying, catch us. We're PSA, and our business is getting you there for yours.
Catch us, PSA, we're saving a seat for you.
So there's no shortage of these jingles that'll be coming in as we go through the course of this flight today. If you don't like jingles, you're out of luck. All right, we were through 10,000 earlier. Forgot to get my seatbelt sign off. And since we're flying PSA and we're going retro, right? By the way, shortly forgot to disarm my auto brakes. But since we're flying PSA, and this is the 1960s, 1970s when they had the 727s around, we can also turn off the no smoking signs, right? Because that's all they did back in the cab in those days, was smoke like chimneys. Disgusting habit. No offense to the smokers in chat, but I think it's a disgusting habit. But hey, we're going period appropriate here, so we got to turn those no smoking signs off. Okay, climbing through flight level 287 there. We're continuing up to to flight level 330. And we want to climb out at about Mach 0.78, if I remember correctly. Let me check this here real quick. Is it there? Oops. Mach 0.78 is our Mach climb. So I'm waiting for it to hit Mach 0.78, then we'll go into Mach hold mode on the pitch selector in the autopilot. This, by the way, is a very, very old school Sperry SP50. This is an old school autopilot here. It's as old school as it gets. Okay, so we're about 10 miles out here from the Battleground VOR. And once we get to Battleground, we're going to track we're going to track the, what was it? I think the 163 radial outbound. We're going to track the 163 radial outbound once we get to the Battleground VOR. Okay, climbing through flight level 300 there. There's, whoops. What did I do just now? I'm not sure what that horn is for. What did I just hit? I don't know. Was it pressurization, maybe? No, pressurization is looking good. Is that gear? No, gear... Gear is up. Gear handle is off. What did I just hit just now? Oh, stab trim cutouts. That's what it was. At least I think it was my stab trim cutout. No, flap down, that's what it was. What did I just do just now? I'm so confused by this. I did something here and I don't know what it was. Hold on, let me disable the maintenance system. Let me go back to the failures here. Sorry about that, folks. That was my fault. In my haste to do things, I must have pressed something here. Let me go back to my failures menu and make sure that I didn't accidentally do something I shouldn't have. That's all looking good. Control surfaces, systems, autopilot, controls. That's looking good. DIs, electrical. Oh boy, what did I do? Equipment, landing gear, everything's looking good there. That's all looking good. Instruments, engine, everything's looking good there. Engines, failures. Nope. Accessories, that's all looking good. Start. That's all looking good there. That's not something I want to hear. That's exactly right. I don't know what I just did. I screwed something up. I just don't know what it was. Let's fix all systems here. Boy, I really don't know what I just pressed. I do not know what I just hit. That sound is still going off there. It wasn't my stab trim cutouts, right? No, it was not. Yeah, let me know there. Let's go back to all cell there. Oh, by the way, we're supposed to be flying the 163 radial outbound, so let's do that right now. Let's fly the airplane first, and then we'll focus on dealing with the problem once we're sure that the airplane is actually being flown. I am totally confused as to what is causing this issue. Let's go outside here. Let's make sure that nothing is like stuck open. Nope, nothing is in a position it should not be in. It's just an alarm. It sounds like the gear horn, altitude hold being engaged there. It sounds like the gear horn, but I'm not sure why it would be going off. Portland, did you see anything in the replay? I'm really confused as to what caused that. I'm so confused here. What is going on? Autopilot. Arm, please. Let's go down to flight level 330. Accidentally hit flaps. Maybe that's what it was, but the flaps are retracted, so I don't know. This is very weird. Yeah, I see, that's the thing. I don't recall actually hitting anything. This is so bizarre. This is like one of the strangest issues I've ever seen. How do I what I'd like to do is just turn off the damn... See that? You see the flap light there? That's what convinces me it's gotta be flaps, right? Because that flap down light comes on every few seconds. How do I... Let's... 1 second. How do I turn off failures involving the flaps? It's gotta be under control surfaces, right? Hard over... It's gotta be flaps. That's exactly what it was. I think I accidentally got the flaps out by mistake. So that was my fault there. I screwed up by getting the flaps out by mistake. Oh boy. That is gonna keep ringing. No, that light seems to come on whenever it trims. Actually, that's a good point there, Portland. That is just the trim light. Yeah, that's a good point. That light is just the stab trim light. That's a good point. That's all that is. Very good point there. Okay, we're leveled off at flight level 330 here. Let's go back into nav look mode. We'll track the 163 radial outbound. You know, I don't see anything wrong with the airplane. Does anybody know how I can silence the alarm there? There's got to be a way to just silence the alarm. Worst case scenario, horn cutout pull. That didn't do anything. This really blows. This really blows. Because I don't want to be listening to this alarm the whole way there, right? As you can imagine. Check pressurization system. No, the pressurization system is doing what it's supposed to. Like, you look at this. Pressurization is showing nominal. We're not doing anything abnormal in the pressurization system. At least, oh my god, you're right, you're right. It is pressurization. It is pressurization. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. That was so dumb. I forgot to get my packs on. Oh boy, that was a senior moment right there. You know, the checklist that I had didn't have packs listed, so that was totally my fault. I forgot to get the packs on. Okay, so we're just gonna wait on the pressurization system to do its thing, and hopefully at that point, the alarm will turn off. And that was the altitude horn, so the altitude horn is here. Yep. I had a senior moment there. You know, I was looking at everything here, and I was like, it looks normal, but maybe I'm reading it wrong, right? The cabin altitude is actually 10,000 something feet. So yeah, good point. Thanks for that. Thanks for reminding me to look at the pressurization system. I was reading this wrong. I was reading cabin altitude on the outside, and I was reading aircraft altitude on the inside. So it was the opposite. So I screwed that up. So, and it was just the altitude horn. That's all it was. So left pack and right packs are now on. We've killed our passengers, folks. But look, all I'm gonna say about our passengers dying of hypoxia in the back, all I'm gonna say about this is this was the 60s and 70s when people were smoking. You know, they were gonna die of cancer anyway. So this way we made it a lot less painful. Okay, that's what we're going with. We're doing totally politically incorrect humor here. We're gonna say that they were gonna die of cancer anyway. How about that? Okay, let's level up at flight level 330. Let's speed up here. Let's speed up here to Mach 0.8, and we'll hold Mach 0.8. We'll hold Mach 0.8 in cruise. We're gonna high-speed cruise today. Can't get done with the cruise portion, the en route portion of this flight soon enough. Oh boy, I knew I was going to screw something up, and it had to have been the pressurization system. Damn it. Damn it. It helps to make sure you're reading the gauge correctly when you're looking at steam gauges, because it's not like in a glass cockpit airplane where everything is helpfully laid out in front of you. You got to do a little bit of interpretation, right? So I totally screwed up. Packs were off. That was the issue. Okay, anyway, cabin pressure right now is dropping, or the cabin altitude is dropping. So that's not dropping. The cabin altitude is increasing. So the cabin pressure is increasing, and the cabin altitude indication is dropping, which is exactly what I want to see. So that is fantastic. Let's just pretend that everything we just saw did not happen. Okay, so we're about 80 miles out here from the Battleground VOR. I'm just going to bump the throttle up here a little bit so we can speed up. And God only knows what else we broke on the airplane, right? Because we were looking at flaps, we cycled a gear at one point. Oh my God, God only knows what else we broke on this airplane. We'll find out, we'll find out. Okay, let's bump up the throttles here just a little bit. Let's accelerate to Mach 0.8. If we can. Wow, look at this. This looks beautiful. Just gonna change the sim time here just a smidgen. Here we go. Alright. So note to self, make sure to turn on the packs. Okay, there we go. We're increasing speed here to Mach 0.8. We'll hold Mach 0.8 in cruise. And we're about 90 miles out here from Battleground. What I want to do is make sure I know when my frequency switchover point is. So let's go back to the Chrome window here. And so we're now going between Battleground and the Rogue Valley VOR, correct? On the Juliet 1 airway. And you remember I mentioned there's a frequency switchover point between Battleground and Rogue Valley. The frequency switchover point is indicated, like I mentioned, by this bracketed line where you have one end of the line going that way, the other end going that way. So what it says here is that 106 miles from the Battleground VOR, we're going to switch frequencies to the Rogue Valley VOR, which is on frequency 113.6, and we're going to track inbound on the 345 radial to Rogue Valley. So there you go. Okay, let's go back to that scene. Now, the thing about that particular scenario we just experienced, right, is that what's super funny about it is that in real life you would start experiencing hypoxia, right? And also I would have had the benefit of having both a co-pilot and a flight engineer who would be able to interpret those warnings a lot better than I could have. So unfortunately, given I was flying this single pilot, and it's been a while since I've flown the FlyJsim 727, I just totally forgot about the packs during the I totally forgot about the packs during the after start flows. Oh my god. Oh my god. Anyway, we're ferrying a busload of not exactly alive passengers back there. But you know what? On the plus side, it does kind of save them the trauma of experiencing the SFO circle lane 1 right in gale-force gusty crosswinds, right? So there's always benefits to everything you do in flying. Even if that thing involves occasionally killing your passengers. So anyway, let me catch up on chat here. I'm sure I missed a ton. Nebojsa Agendik, thank you for that. I much appreciate it. You were the man for identifying the problem there. All right, let me catch up on chat here. Oh yeah, Portland earlier was saying it's okay, you think the passenger's oxygen system lasted that whole time. See, the problem there, Portland, was the passenger oxygen system was not on. It was just a normal. So, I am not sure in the 727 if the oxygen masks automatically drop when the oxygen system is set to normal. I think it does automatically drop, but I'm not sure. So, you know what? It's 50-50. Whether or not our passengers survived. Okay, we were through 106 miles. I totally missed that for some reason. We're through 106 miles, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to swap frequencies to the Rogue Valley VOR. Rogue Valley is 113.6. 113.6 set there in nav, standby nav 1. Going to tune that in nav 1. And we're going to track the 345 radial inbound, which is the 165 course. Opposite of 345 is 165. So there we go. Let's go back in the nav loc mode, and there we go. Forgot to get my chill music back on earlier. Let's go and get that back on. There we go. Okay, so now we're tracking inbound to Rogue Valley. And once we get to Rogue Valley, we're going to track outbound on the Juliet 501 airway on the 161 radial from Rogue Valley. So that's what that looks like once we get a Rogue Valley. So once we get a Rogue Valley, 161 radial tuned in, we'll fly that outbound, And we'll fly that outbound for 132 miles. Whenever, you know, we can either pick up the Point Reyes VOR, or if you run into the MEA gap that I mentioned earlier that's listed on the chart, whenever we run into that MEA gap, we're just going to fly the heading that we were on until we can pick up the Point Reyes VOR. So that's going to be our plan. Let's go back to XPlane 11 there. Alright, we're doing well here. Okay, let's back off the throttle there just a little bit. I'm going to set about maybe about 1.2 EPR for now. Or 1.8 EPR rather. Let's check on the fuel system here real quick. Fuel temp's looking good. Fuel quantity's looking good. We've got about 5,000 pounds left in each tank. That's looking good. Alright, let's go into some cinematic shots here. And yeah, we'll check out some cinematic shots as we continue outbound here. Just going to turn down the exterior sounds a little bit. That way we can enjoy the views a little with some chill background music. And I'll catch up on chat here. Okay, so Lucas SS, how's it going? Lucas SSS also had the pressurization as the potential culprit. This is why I should do a better job of catching up on chat as well. Yeah, totally. Oh man, I don't know how I screwed that up, but anyway. Besides the passengers having a 50-50 chance of dying, I think we're all good. Alan Russell was saying, Alan, how's it going, first of all? Alan Russell was saying I was caught up with solving why the number 3 engine wasn't starting. Yeah, exactly. I'm still hung up on a whole bunch of other things, right? So, although I'm surprised that the cabin altitude didn't show up in the failures menu that we were looking at earlier. So yeah, I thought it was something related to the initial problem we had, right? So, yeah, it's super interesting how these things go. It's super interesting, for sure. Oh my god. Oh. Okay. I'm gonna set my live weather here in San Francisco. Okay, yeah, winds are 030 at 38, gusting to 46 in San Francisco, so it's gusting, folks. It's gonna be crazy. It's going to be crazy once we get to San Francisco. Once again, folks, if you're just joining us, there is a distinct possibility we've killed everyone in back with a cabin depressurization due to me forgetting to turn on the packs. But besides that, we're flying PSA. PSA, ladies and gentlemen, PSA, the world's friendliest airline. PSA. Less fancies, more planes.
Today, some airlines go out of their way to please you.
Time for the movie.
I don't want a movie.
I ordered steak.
I don't want a movie.
But I wanted steak.
I don't think he wants the movie.
At PSA, we never lost sight of what an airline should be. So at PSA, we give you more planes and less fancies. We give you low fares, not fanfares. PSA, our smiles aren't just painted on.
That's right, we're flying PSA. Our smiles are not just painted on. Well, look at that happy Mad Dog there. That is a super happy looking Mad Dog. Or not a Mad Dog. I've flown the MD-80 on stream so many times. I'm thinking Mad Dog, but no, that's a super happy looking 727 there. But Nebojza was saying, by the way, the MEA gap, yeah, totally Nebojza. No, Nebojza, like I was saying at the start of the stream, the MEA gap, exactly like you said, it only applies, or it's only supposedly, you know, that gap exists. It may or may not exist, right? Even if you're flying exactly at the MEA altitude, it may or may not exist. But when you're flying above it, the chance of that MEA gap actually existing decreases. But the point is, right, the reason that gap is listed on the chart is because that incredibly long distance between, like I said earlier, that incredibly long distance of 264 miles between Rogue Valley and and Point Reyes. So it's 264 in the box there. So that MEA gap, you know, typically, if you see it, it's probably going to appear if you're flying at the MEA. If you're flying significantly above the MEA, like I mentioned, around flight level 330, probably you're not going to see it, but it's good to kind of keep that in mind anyway, because I don't know, you know, how well the nav aid ranges are modeled in XPlane 11. That's another thing. So anyway, we're doing good here. We're continuing towards Rogue Valley. We're 21 miles out from Rogue Valley. God only knows what else I broke on the airplane. We're gonna find out. We're gonna find out during our super gusty crosswind landing into San Francisco later. Oh my God. It would not be a DJ Aviator stream without things going horrifically wrong, right? I'm gonna pull up the Point Reyes 3 here, because we're gonna be talking about that pretty soon. Okay, and also the other thing is I gotta start preparing for my descent pretty soon as well. So anyway, let's go ahead and get some more cinematic shots here. And while that's going on, I'm gonna go ahead and pull up my chart here, and I'm gonna look at the Point Reyes 3 and figure out when I want to start my descent. So I probably want to be at about, now let's say about 6,000 feet at Woodside, right? So Woodside is 14 miles plus 43, so 14 plus 43, that's, correction, 57. So let's say about 60 miles, just going to round that up, 60 miles. So Point Reyes to Woodside is about 60, actually, you know what, I want to round that down. So Point Reyes to Woodside, let's assume 55 miles. So basically I got to decide how far in anticipation off Point Reyes I want to start my descent in order to hit 6,000 at Woodside. We're at flight level 330, 33 minus 6 is 27. So 27 times 3, that's 50, hold on. Not 27 times 3. That's 81. So 81 miles, actually let's say, so 81 minus 55, actually, hold on. Just doing the math here. 81 minus 55, that gives me 26. So you know what, about 35 miles out from Point Reyes is when I'm going to start my descent. 35 miles out from Point Reyes. There we go. Okay, we're coming up on the Rogue Valley VOR here. We're just about 6 miles out. So this is slant range, obviously, right? So slant range is the slant angle, right? The range at an angle. So right now we're passing over the VOR, pretty much over the cone of confusion already. What I want to do is go back into turn knob mode, and I want to tune in a course, or I want to tune in the 163 radial, correct? Actually, hold on one second. What was it? The 161 radial. 161 radial outbound. So I'm going to tune that course in. 161, there we go. Let's go back into VOR lock, or nav lock mode. And now we're going to fly this radial, the 161 radial, outbound from Rogue Valley for about 132 nautical miles, or as long as we have signal reception, at which point we'll switch the Point Reyes VOR. So there we go, we're doing well. Mach 0.8 there, just going to bump up the throttle just a smidgen there to maintain Mach 0.8. There we go. Let's check on the fuel and back. Fuel situation is looking fantastic, and our pressurization system is looking a lot better than it was earlier. So pressurization is now comfortable. That's good. Holy smokes. Why is my cabin altitude still dropping? Hold on. I think I just need to set it into the little detent there, right? But my cabin altitude, there we go. Okay, now it's stabilizing. Because the last thing you want is the cabin to overpressure and blow the fuselage out. So now we're leveling off, thank God. It almost went into the cautionary arc there. That would not have been good either. The last thing you want is to go from one problem to another problem, right? Nebosha says, auto mode failure, try manual. Yeah, maybe that's what it was, right? That's why I switched back into manual, and then I went back into auto mode, and that worked. And I'm sorry, Nebosha and everybody in chat. I know I missed a ton in chat. I'm gonna catch up here. So we're going outbound now on the 161 radial. We're about 30 miles out. We're just gonna keep going outbound for the next 100 miles or so until we can pick up the Point Reyes VOR in about 100 miles. Okay, let's go back into some external shots here, and I'm going to catch up on chat, folks. Portland was saying earlier, to be fair, that was my non-existent second officer's responsibility. Exactly. You know, the thing about second officers, right, is, you know, who knows what a second officer even does, right? So this was a second officer probably paying me back for paying me back for all the times that we treat second officers like they're non-existent, right? If you treat somebody like they don't exist, eventually when it comes time for them to have their voice heard, you're not going to hear them, right? It's true in real life as well. So always treat your flight engineer station like it's super important, and you're not going to miss super critical things like turning your packs on. All right, let's see, what else did I miss here? Oh, Neboja, no worries at all about the beginning of the stream. Yeah, I tend to do these things where I go into a lot of detail at the start, and then I sort of like hit on things in an incidental sort of way later on in the stream, and so folks that are tuning in later on don't necessarily know exactly what happened at the start, right? So don't worry about it, it's all good. So yeah, I'm all caught up on chat there. How about that? That's always nice to see. All right, by the way, this tail number, I'm not too happy that whoever, so this is a beautiful livery, by the way, so thank you to whoever made this livery for the FlyJsim 727. The one thing that does concern me, I think that tail number there, November 533 Papa Sierra, that was the tail number for that 1727 that had the mid-air collision in San Diego. You remember that really famous one where they collided with a 172 over San Diego? And that's what prompted the creation of like terses and Class Bravo airspace and all that stuff. And that's what prompted a much more rigid separation of VFR and IFR traffic in busy airspace, you know, what we know as Class Bravo today. I believe this tail number was the tail number of that airplane. So it's super unfortunate that somebody created such a beautiful livery but decided to put that tail number on it. That kind of freaks me out a little bit. I'm going to be honest. I know that some people see it as paying homage or whatever, but I don't see it like that. I see it as a little bit not such a good idea. You know what I mean? Anyway, by the way, check out this ortho. This looks spectacular, doesn't it? I love this ortho here. We're currently, let's see, where are we exactly? We're still over Oregon. We're coming up on the California-Oregon border here in about 20 to 30 miles, I think. We're currently over, where are we? Can't quite tell exactly. We're about, I'd say about 15 miles north of Medford. 15 miles south of Medford. And we should be passing Mount Shasta and Redding, California in less than 100 miles. So that's going to be a beautiful sight once we've got Mount Shasta off the left side of the airplane here in just a little bit. So I do have ortho, I think, for Mount Shasta as well. So I can't wait to see that. That's going to be spectacular. Actually, there it is. Here I am talking about seeing Mount Shasta in about 100 miles. And actually, it's right there right now. So that's Mount Shasta off the left side of the airplane right now. So let's go ahead and take a look. There it is. That's spectacular. Oops. There's Mount Shasta right there. And Redding is going to be a little bit further to the south here. So that's super cool. There's Mount Shasta there. So we'll get some gorgeous views of Mount Shasta there as we continue towards the south on the 161 radial. So we're 72 miles out. You see how fast we're traversing the 650 miles here between Seattle and San Francisco. We're going to be in San Francisco in no time whatsoever. All right. Oops. Here we go. I'll give you this shot right here. Actually, you know what? Let's change the time of day just a smidgen here. Does anybody know what is that keyboard shortcut for changing the time of day without going into the menu? It's something Shift plus K or something, right? I forgot what it is. What is the keyboard shortcut, does anybody know, for XPlane 11 to change the time of day without actually going into the menu? And Nibojza earlier was Nibojza, thanks for the kind words regarding my knowledge. I'm not super knowledgeable. I tend to get a lot of things wrong, as you can probably tell from all the things that have gone wrong in the stream, but I do appreciate the very kind words. I do my best to kind of like, you know, prepare before a flight and refresh my knowledge if I know things, but I get as many things wrong as I get right, so I do appreciate all of you folks that are tuning in that that help me catch my errors. And Lord knows there have been far too many of those errors on this stream so far, so I do appreciate all of you that have put up with it and hung out thus far. Can't thank you enough. Absolutely, how's it going? Hope you're doing well there, Absolutely Aviation. And Nibojza, yeah, I totally agree, it does look pretty. It looks absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, totally there, Nibojza. Yeah, and this is part of the reason, right, that in real life, you've got such a thing as a type rating. And this is part of the reason in real life, you know, when an airline puts you on a certain aircraft type, you stay on that aircraft type for years typically. You know, you definitely don't switch back and forth between vastly different aircraft types, because you see how easy it is to screw up like tiny little details that make, or at least what you think in your head are tiny little details that in practice make a significant difference to the safety of your operations and the safety of your flight. So, but wow, look at this. This looks spectacular. This just looks stunning. I'm going to take a screenshot right here. Wow. Beautiful sunrise here over Northern California. Look at that ortho, man. That looks spectacular. You know, it isn't quite MSFS level, but XPlane ortho, I gotta tell you, does look pretty amazing. Absolutely Aviation says you're good, just got enrolled in ground school. That is fantastic, absolutely. Absolutely, I am doing awesome. I hope you are also. Hope you're having a great weekend thus far. But that is great news about ground school there, absolutely. Good luck with that. Are you doing like, are you doing ground school with a local flight school, or is it some kind of like online course out of curiosity? Nibojza says, nice job, you came in at roughly the right time. Yeah, totally there, Nibojza. Nibojza, I'm guessing from what I've heard from you so far that you must be a commercial pilot. I don't know if you work professionally in the airlines or in the corporate world or what, but you certainly sound like somebody who works in commercial aviation there. Wow, look at this. This looks spectacular. Okay, we're 107 miles out there. continue to track outbound, and what's super cool right now, I'm super happy with this, we're relatively stable at about Mach 0.8, Mach 0.81, so the power setting that I had looks like it's working out pretty well, so I'm super pleased with that. Alright, let me tune in the Point Reyes VOR in nav 2, just so I have a distance readout for that. Point Reyes VOR is on 113.7, so I'm going to tune that in right now. 113.7 tuned in. I'm going to put that at standby nav 1 as well. There we go. There we go. So now we got a distance readout from the Point Reyes VOR. So Nebojsa, exactly like what you said, it looks like, thankfully, because we've already got a VOR signal from Point Reyes, it looks like we will not experience an MEA gap at this altitude, exactly like you said. So that is fantastic. As I said earlier, right, that typically that only applies, that MEA gap, if you're flying right at that MEA. And even then, it may or may not apply, right? It depends on what the altimeter setting is, right? Even though you're about your transition altitude, your altimeter setting makes a difference in terms of what altitude above the ground you actually are at. So that affects whether or not you actually experience an MEA gap or not. But it looks like, in this case, because we've already picked up at least a DME signal, quite likely that implies we've also going to pick up a VOR signal. Yeah, there it is. There is a VOR signal on nav 2. So we will not experience an MEA gap, thankfully. So we're at 123 miles. At 132 miles, we're going to tune in the Point Reyes VOR, and we're going to fly that inbound. All right. Let's go outside here, and let's check out some more beautiful shots here. This looks gorgeous. Mount Shasta fading away there in the background. Look at that. This looks spectacular. Let's do a flyby. There we go. Let's do another flyby. That's one of the things I wish MSFS and even P3D had, you know. This is one of the super cool things that XPlane has that I just love this feature. The flyby camera. It's one of the coolest features in FlyJsim cameras. I just love this feature. Could do this all day. Okay, there's 132 nautical miles. So that's our frequency swap over point between these two VORs. So I'm going to go back into the turn knob mode on my lateral navigation. And now I'm going to swap frequencies to the Point Reyes VOR. We're going to tune in the 343 radial inbound, right? So let's go ahead and take a look here real quick on the section, or on the high en route chart here, the IFR high altitude en route chart. So there we go. There's the Point Reyes VOR. Now we're going to pick up the 343 radial inbound. So let's go ahead and tune in the opposite of 343, which is the 163 course. There we go. And now I'm going to go back into nav lock mode on the autopilot on my trusty old Sperry SP50. And yeah, we're going to track that VOR inbound. So we're 124 miles out from Point Reyes. And once I'm between 40 to 35 miles out is when I want to start my descent down to 6,000 feet. So we got to start preparing for the descent here. I want to hide the yokes away because those will get distracting later. And I want to set my speed bugs for landing. So VREF 124, it's probably going to drop down to 123, 122 by the time we're at the bottom of descent. So I'm going to reset that later. And let's talk about the Point Reyes 3 arrival here on the map, right? So this is the Point Reyes 3 arrival. We're tracking direct to Point Reyes, actually not direct, we're proceeding on the Juliet 501 airway to Point Reyes right now. At Point Reyes, we're going to fly the 144 radial outbound for 16 miles to the Stints intersection. And then we're going to continue on the Victor 27 area, I think still on the 144 radial to Hadley. Hadley is at 42.9 DME. You see where it says 42.9 D there, or D 42.9? That's the distance to Hadley. At Hadley, we're going to intercept the 256 radial inbound to the Woodside VOR. So Woodside is on 113.9er. It's Hadley's 14 DME from Woodside, and at Woodside, we're going to give ourselves vectors for the ILS 28 right into San Francisco. But before we brief that approach plate, let's go ahead and tune in 113.9 in standby nav 1 there, and 113.9 in nav 2. And the other thing I want to do is hop back to the Avitab tablet here, and let's go ahead and pull up the ILS 28 right. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the ILS 28 right with a circle to land on 1 right. Now, in real life, by the way, at least in the modern era, I'm going to pull this up here real quick so you can see this. There actually is an RNAV visual approach plate for 01 right at SFO, and this is what a lot of airplanes were using during those approaches to 1 right. Whoops, hold on one second, I screwed up here. I opened up the wrong program. This is what this approach that I'm going to show you here in a second is what a lot of airplanes were using on Tuesday, when they landed on 1 right. So this is the RNAV visual 1 right. Essentially, it basically is off the ILS 28 right for the most part. It's the same approach path. So we're going to do sort of that same approach path. And this fixed Axmal that you see there, that fix is on the ILS 28 right. So at Axmal, we're going to turn to heading of about 245. We're going to track on that heading for about 4.5 miles at 1,800 feet. And then we're going to turn base and then eventually turn final to 1 right. So we're going to sort of fly this without actually flying this, right? So that's what we're aiming for. Let's go back to Avitab here, and we'll talk about the ILS 28 right. So ILS 28 right approach, identifier is India Golf Whiskey Quebec, frequency is 111.7, so I'm going to set that in standby nav 2, just so I have that for reference, 111.7. There we go. And final approach course is 284, okay? So from Woodside, we're going to proceed to Eddy, right? So essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to fly the Oakland VOR 151 radial inbound to Dumba. So inbound to Eddy first, then Sidby. We're going to descend down to 3,000 after Sidby, and we'll intercept the ILS at Dumba at about 3,000 feet. So then we're going to continue on to... Sorry, did I say Dumba? I disregard everything I just said. So we're going to intercept the 151 radial inbound to Oakland at Eddy. Then we're going to go on to Sidby. Then we're going to descend down to 3,000 at Seapen. Dumba is actually a little bit further away to the south there. We're going to disregard that. So Seapen is when we're going to join the ILS. So Seapen at 3,000, and then at that point we probably should be intercepting the glide slope as well. We're going to head down to the final approach fix of Axmal at 800. It's correction to 1,800 feet at Axmal. At Axmal, we're going to break off the ILS. We're going to turn left on a heading of about 245, 250, and we're going to track inland. And then we're going to fly the circling visual to 1 right. Let's see if there's any circling minimums here. Yeah, there we go. Circle to land minimums. At our approach speed, it's going to be 1,560 feet. So I'm going to put in... I'm going to put in about 560 there. Here we go. And I just got to remind myself, right, that's 1,560 and not 560. But that's fine. It's pretty easy to remember that. Visibility minimum, at least 3 statute miles. We got that. We'll take a look at the weather in active sky here in a second so I can prove to you what I've got. Airport elevation is 13 feet. We got our MSAs there. 4,500 feet to the south, 3,500 feet to the west, and 5,000 feet to the north. In case we need to go amiss, we're going to climb to 3,000 feet on the San Francisco 281 radial to 12 DME from the VOR, and will hold as published at the VIQ fix. Right turns in the hold inbound in the 281 radial. Missed approach requires a minimum climb of 350 feet per nautical mile to 1900. If unable to meet climb gradient, see the ILS or localize your 28 left. I think we should be okay there. Circling runway 1 left, 1 right, not authorized at night. used the DME, went on the localizer course, VHSI. Okay, all that stuff is good. So we're all good there. Let's take a look at the airport plate here, or the airport chart. We've got a runway length of 8,650 feet. And this is probably a good point to talk about the weather, by the way. So, oh, what is going on? I've lost my DME readout for some reason. Oh, I totally screwed this up. 113.7. There we go. Let's go back to nav look mode. I accidentally tuned in. I tuned in the wrong. I tuned that in my active instead of standby. Whoops. That's something you don't want to do. Okay, but we're 60 miles out from Point Reyes, so you always. This is one of these things about this particular airplane and the quirks of this airplane. There is no such thing as active and standby inputs here. Active is whatever you have that toggle switch toggled towards. So I'm using logic from another type of airplane, you know, like a normal airplane, and I'm tuning in the frequency that I thought should go into standby. But in reality, active is whatever I've got that little blue light hovering above. So I accidentally swapped my active frequency without realizing, and that's why we went off course. So now we're getting back on course. Thankfully, it looks like we only ended up maybe about 2 to 3 miles, actually maybe less than 2 miles off course, so that's good. That worried me for a second. But we went off course just a little bit there. So I don't know if you guys know about this, but the width of an airway is about 4 miles on each side. I'm not sure if a jet airway has the same width, but it's about 4 miles on each side. So I think we stayed within the width of the airway, hopefully. Either case, you know, that's a reportable right there. Anyway, the airport length is 8,000, or the runway length for one right is 8,650 feet, right? Let's go ahead and talk about the winds at the winds that we're anticipating at San Francisco today. And actually, I forgot to pull up live ATC. I totally promised you would do that, and I totally forgot to do that. Let me go ahead and pull up live ATC right now. Let's pull up Tower, and we'll play Tower in the background. Whoops, actually not that. Hold on. I wanted to pull this up with the Windows Media Player. There we go. Okay, so that'll play in the background. So hopefully we should have some ambient ATC audio in the background. And yeah, we're doing good here. We're about 40 miles out. We should be starting our descent about now, by the way. So let's go ahead and start our descent, and then I'm going to show you the weather situation at San Francisco, okay? So there's the ATC audio in the background. Just going to let that play. And let's go ahead and start descending here. And sorry folks, I know I missed a ton in chat, but I'm going to catch up as soon as I can. Okay, let's set our speed bugs. It is set. And let's get the seatbelt sign. Actually, you know what? We'll do that once we've started our descent. Let's go ahead and start our descent here. Okay, let's start our descent. We'll descend at about, 2,000 feet per minute or something like that. Actually, you know what? Let's maintain a speed of about... Actually, let's maintain our current speed in the descent. And I'm going to bring the throttles back. We'll descend in IAS whole mode there. So you can hear that. This is the ATC audio recording from... Whoops. Totally screwed this up here. I want to descend down to 6,000 feet. There we go, 6,000 feet. And I want to go to alt cell on the autopilot. There we go. Okay. And we can descend pretty much at close to idle thrust there. That should be good enough. All right, fantastic. Now let's talk about the crazy winds that we're dealing with at San Francisco. So let's go to the desktop capture scene. So this is just to prove it to you, right? This is historical weather for the 19th of January, around 1500 UTC, 1500 Zulu. So look at the winds there. 030 at 030 at 38 gusting to 46. It's going to be a rock and rollin' ride, folks. It's going to be a rock and rollin' ride. 10 statute mile visibility. A few clouds reported, very, very high altitude, 20,000 feet. Temperature 14, dew point -2. Altimeter is going to be 29 or 9 or 1. We got that. Just looking at anything here to see if I missed anything. We're all good there. Okay, so those are the crazy, crazy winds we're going to be dealing with today during our approach. Just wanted to prove it to you. That's what we're going to be dealing with today. Okay, continuing our descent here. So, the point of bringing up the winds as well, by the way, was not just to show you how crazy this is, but also to point out something. So, the 030 at 36 gusting, correction, at 38 gusting to 46, those winds are reported in terms of true headings. That 030 is in terms of true headings. And given the magnetic variation in this part of the world, that's basically blowing almost right down the runway. It might be about a 5 to 10 degree crosswind component, right? So we're going to have a slight crosswind, if anything, from the right. So that's just something to note. We might have a slight crosswind there from the right. But the point is, let's say we have 36 knots steady and occasionally gust, or 38 knots steady, occasionally gust to 46. If my final approach speed is, so, you know, VREF is 124, right? The maximum wind correction that I'm going to apply to the 727 is plus 20. Sorry, right? So, assuming the winds are blowing straight down the runway, which they mostly are, right? If you do the headwind component, crosswind component calculations, it's 124 plus half of 38. So 124 plus half of 38 is, you know, like, I think that's, is that 19? Yeah, 19, 130, 124 plus 19, 4 plus 9, 3, 1 carries over, 3 plus 1, 4, so 143 plus the full gust factor. The full gust factor is 8. So that's a total final approach speed. If I were to just base it off the typical VREF plus half the winds plus the full gust factor, that's actually going to be a whopping 151. But the maximum wind correction that I can apply to this airplane to VREF is 20 knots. So 124 plus 20 gives me a final approach speed of 144. So this is the approach speed that I'm going to be flying most of the downwind and the base leg with, is 144 knots. And then I want to start bleeding off speed when I'm on short final. So as I'm coming in on final here, you know, from making that turn from base to final, I want to start bleeding off speed to be at VREF plus the full gust factor. The full gust factor is 8 knots. Okay, there we are. We're at Point Reyes right now, so I want to go ahead and go back into the turn knob on lateral navigation. And now I want to fly, let's go back to the Point Reyes 3. Now I want to fly the 144 radial outbound. So let's go ahead and tune that radial in, 144. There it is. Let's go ahead and go back to nav loc mode, and we'll fly the 144 radial outbound. So there we go. And actually, let's get the speed brakes out a little bit here. And that way we can start losing some altitude. There we go. Okay, lose a little bit of speed there. I can probably accelerate to about 300 knots in the descent. And yeah, we're doing good here. So, okay, let's go back to the game plan. So, I want to lose speed so that I'm at 124, which is my re-ref, plus the full gust factor, which is 8 knots. So, about 132 knots is my final approach speed. And in the 727, my understanding is I want to hold that VREF plus the full gust factor all the way to touchdown. So I'm aiming for about 132 knots all the way to touchdown. Now, of course, that's going to be super challenging and difficult given that, you know, we have a lot of turbulence and potentially some wind shear as well. So we'll see how well we do. But anyway, we got our game plan. That's all mapped out. We're past Tins here. We're going to continue on the 144 radial once we've intercepted it. There we go. We're intercepting it now. A little bit bad management here of my navigation, given that I'm flying the single pilot. But we're going to be flying the 144 radial all the way down to Hadley. And at Hadley, we're going to turn left to pick up the 256 radial inbound to Woodside. So that is our plan. And we're below transition level there, so let's go ahead and tune in, or let's go ahead and set our altimeter to the local altimeter setting in San Francisco, which is 29091. So that is set. And let's set it in the standby altimeter as well. Okay, we're doing great. Okay, let me catch up on chat. Blooms1212, Blooms, how's it going, my friend? I haven't seen you since our last stream, and I noticed you were a bit quiet in the last stream there, Blooms. I hope you're doing fantastic. I hope life in New Zealand is treating you well. VX Free Flight Productions, I hope you're doing well there, VX. Haven't seen your name in a while either. Thanks for hanging out today. And folks, let me catch up on chat here. I know I missed a ton. Portland says you wish there were airliners like this in MSFS. Yeah, I wish so. I wish as well. It would be super awesome to get types like this in MSFS sometime soon. Nebojza says you've been just cozy and XPlane at the moment. Yeah, you know, the existing platforms, honestly, like XPlane 11, P3D, especially XPlane with ortho, I mean, it looks pretty good, you know, and not to mention, you've got some incredibly great add-ons like the FlyJsim 727, 737, you know, the Tolus, of course, the Inabil's A300, which is on my list of add-ons to get. You know, you've got some really, really good add-ons out there, so there's no shortage of fantastic add-ons for XPlane 11 to keep you occupied, at least until the study level tube liner add-ons come out for MSFS, hopefully sometime in the next couple of years, right? So these are good platforms for sure. And Nebojza earlier was saying you're currently rated in the E-Jet, but you're currently not flying, sadly. Oh, sorry about that, Nebojza. Yeah, it's a really tough time in the industry, you know, like you were saying. It's a super tough time in the industry. But I do hope, my friend, that it picks back up and that you're back in the left seat or right seat, whatever it is you typically fly, as soon as possible. Okay, we're descending down to 6,000 feet there. I'm slowing down to 250 knots below 10,000. Let's get the seatbelts on. Let's get the no smoking signs on. If anybody's alive and back, you know, that should hopefully wake them up. And let's get our landing lights on. So landing lights coming on. Forgot to do my descent and approach checklist. Let's do that right now. Seatbelts on, anti-iced, set, landing lights on, auto brake set to medium in my case. Altimeter set and cross-check, radio altimeter set, flight instruments radio set and cross-checked, EPR and airspeed bugs set, fuel set for landing. Fuel picture is looking good, pressurization picture is looking good. That is great. Hydraulics, pressure and quantity normal. Pressurization and cooling door set. Descent and approach checklist is complete. Okay, continuing to descend down to 6,000 here. And we're coming up on the Hadley intersection super quick. So let's go ahead and tune in the Woodside VORs 113.9, right? So let's go back into turn knob there. And what I want to do is set my heading bug to the opposite of 256. The opposite of 256, I think, is about 086, correct? Yeah, about that. And I want to tune in the 086 radial, or 086 course, which is the 256 radial inbound. Wait, actually, 076, sorry, 2507. Okay, 076, correct? Yeah. Okay, now we're going to switch to the Woodside VOR. There we go. And let's go ahead and go back into VOR lock mode, and we'll fly that radial inbound, continuing to descend down to 6,000. We're descending down to 6,000. I've got alt cell altitude capture armed, and we're doing great. All right, folks, we're doing awesome. I'm going to step away here, folks, from my computer for literally about 10 seconds. Just got to do something here in the room. So just give me 1 second. I'm going to give you some cinematic shots, and I'll be right back before we hit 6,000, okay? Hopefully. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. So we're coming up on 6,000 feet there. Altitude capture is armed. After Woodside, we're going to continue outbound from Woodside for a little bit, actually, as we continue to descend. So there's 6,000 feet. We'll maintain about 240 knots here as we track towards Woodside. And we're going to fly a heading of about 070 here, continuing towards Eddy. And we'll cross Eddy at 6,000, like I mentioned. So once again, this is the ILS 28 right. There's our position, the little red airplane there. We're tracking towards Woodside. After Woodside, we'll continue on to Eddy. At Eddy, we're going to turn left on the 151 radial inbound to Oakland until we can pick up the ILS. So Oakland, the frequency is 116.8. Let me go ahead and get that in standby here. Once again, got to make sure I don't confuse my active and standby. 116. What was it? 116.8. Okay, that's Oakland. By the way, what is the ATC audio level like? Is it too loud or too low? Let me know. Hopefully it's not too bad. Okay, just gonna speed up here just a little bit. There we go. And let me catch up on chat here. Bloom says, doing well. You've been crazy busy lately. Hey, no worries at all, Blooms. I'm glad you're able to tune in now. And VX says, nice to see some retro aircraft. Totally. I love retro airplanes, and I especially love these old school steam gauge airplanes. Although I gotta tell you, when I fly these on stream, I need to do a much better job of practicing before I actually stream, because I kind of jumped into this without a whole lot of time in this airplane in the past few months, actually. So we made a couple of critical errors, including, by the way, forgetting to turn the packs back on after starting the engine. Actually, I want to do a 0. That course should do it right there. 077. I'm gonna fly that heading. But I forgot to turn the packs on after the engine start, so we had a cabin depressurization during the climb. And because we had another issue during the engine start, it took me a really long time to figure out that the altitude horn was the sound that was going off. So it took us a while to turn the packs back on. I think there's about a 50-50 chance that the folks in back are no longer breathing. But hey, you know, we're doing this for you folks who are watching, not for the imaginary passengers in the back, right? Okay, let's go into heading select mode here, and we'll fly this heading. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tune in the Oakland VOR 116.8, and I'm going to go ahead and set the ILS frequency 111.7 for 28 right in standby nav 1. There we go. And we're continuing towards Eddy here. And what I want to do is tune in the 151 radial outbound, or inbound rather, to Oakland. So 151, opposite of that is 331, if I remember correctly. So that's the course we're going to fly inbound to Oakland. So once that needle starts to come in, that implies that we're approaching the Eddy fix. At that point, we're going to turn inbound. So that is going to be our plan. So that's our current position once again, for those of you who are wondering where we are right now. The mandatory altitude at Eddy is 6,000 feet. So there we go. Blooms, very likely. I would not be surprised. It really kind of depends on whether or not the passenger oxygen system had a chance to automatically deploy. Either case, it's a mess in the back. But as I was saying earlier in the stream, you know, we're flying PSA, right? This is like a retro airline from way back, super popular back in the 60s and 70s in California. Let's go ahead and start our descent here, down to 4,000 for now. Since we're flying a retro airline here, you know, obviously back then, the no smoking signs were actually turned off in flight, right? So, as I was kind of joking earlier, you know, I think it totally makes sense way back then that, you know, since everybody was smoking anyway, you know, they were probably going to die one way or another. You know, in much less prettier ways than hypoxia, right? So I figured, since that was the case, let's continue our descent down to 3,000. I figured since that was the case, you know, maybe killing everybody through hypoxia was not the worst thing in the world. And you're probably wondering, wow, when did DJ's channel get so dark? When did DJ's channel get so dark, man? Okay, continuing to descend down to 3,000 feet there. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to adjust my time so we have a little bit of light out. Or, sorry, a little less light out. I want it to be right around sunset. So we have some gorgeous views of San Francisco Bay and have the lights come on all over Silicon Valley. That's going to be beautiful. Okay, let's get flaps 2 there. Let's retract the speed brake. And let's go ahead and tune in the ILS here. 111.7, final approach course is 284, gonna tune that in. There we go, and let's go ahead and arm the approach. So we're continuing to proceed in heading select mode. Let's go ahead and arm the approach there. I think the approach is auto manual glide slope actually. Whoops. Heading select. Auto glide slope. There we go. That's better. Okay. VOR localizer mode there. Let's go flaps 5. Let's slow down to 180 knots. And let me check active sky here real quick to make sure that the winds are showing what they were supposed to be showing. Yeah, 030 at 38, gusting to 46. Holy smokes. This is going to be crazy. This is going to be crazy. VXS, unfortunately, you've been held up with ramp work over the last few months, being a small station with a lot of traffic. However, due to being back in school now and recovering from COVID, you have a little spare time on your hands. Well, first of all, I'm really sorry you got COVID there, VX. But I'm glad to hear you're recovering and that you do have some time in your hands and that you're back in school. Thanks for hanging out with us today, my friend. It's been a bad time for a lot of folks, right? I had a member of my immediate family actually catch COVID, and that was a bad time. I was talking about this in some of my streams a few months ago. That was a really bad time when my family member caught COVID. Okay, let's get the autopilot off here, and we'll go ahead and take over and fly manually from this point forward. The winds are really kind of pushing us here. So I'm going to start descending so that we get back on the glide slope. And let's go ahead and set my speed bug there to VREF plus full gust factor about 131. Just so I have that as a handy dandy reference there. Okay, at this point I'm flying manually, taking over, and yeah, we'll see how we do. It's going to be bumpy. It's going to be super bumpy. There's going to be a lot of turbulence, and there's going to be some wind shear as well. So the axial fix that I mentioned earlier is at 7.4 DME. So I'm kind of cutting in my turn a bit close here. There's the San Mateo Bridge, pretty much right below us back down there. So basically, I'm going to make my turn inland between the San Mateo Bridge and Coyote Point, which is that little piece of land, that little peninsula of land that extends out into the bay there. So there's basically, this is about where Aximal is. I'm going to continue descending down to 1,800 feet, and I'm going to level off at about 1,800 feet. And right now, we're going to turn inland.
Runway 1 right of arrival, wind shear alert, 20 knot gain, 1 mile final, wind 3625. And then we also have wind shear loss.
Did you hear that with the
16 knots on the runway.
Let's arm the speed brake there. Make sure we've armed the auto brakes to medium. Yes, indeed, we have. Yep, okay. So let's go ahead and get the landing gear down at this point. going to slow down to our final approach speed on a heading of about 245, 250. And yeah, we're flying downwind basically at this point. And you can see we're getting bumped around here. We're definitely getting bumped around. We're going to run into some updrafts and downdrafts. You probably heard the live ATC recording there that said wind shear expected on final of about 20 knots. That's crazy. This is nuts. And you can see there's the updrafts there. As soon as you run into an updraft, you can anticipate, you know, like we have an old saying in glider flying, which is where there's lift, there's sink. So it's just like that. Where there's lift, there's sink. As soon as you run into an updraft, you can anticipate running into a downdraft not long after. But here we go. Let's go ahead and continue descending here. We'll turn base. Usually I do my base leg for this approach a bit closer in, but I'm going to take it up a little bit here, closer to Crystal Springs. And yeah, we're going to fly downwind here. So I want to maintain about 144 knots there on base, and then we'll slow it down to about 132 on short final. 132 is VREF plus the full gust factor of 8 knots. Yeah, we're getting bounced around. And by the way, I'm crabbed into the wind, right? That's the reason we seem to be turned towards the runway. I'm crabbed into the wind here because we've got a significant crosswind component on our base leg. This is crazy. This is just absolutely nuts. A little high here, but we're going to get back on track. Let's go ahead and start turning final here. Going to overshoot slightly there, that's fine.
500.
Runway 1 right, arrival threshold wind is 01020.
Got to make sure I clear those power lines that parallel the 101 there. And yeah, I'm getting bounced around plenty. I've got a slight crosswind there from the right, which is made pretty tricky because of these gusts that are kicking up every once in a while. All right.
100. 50. 40.
Airport wind 36032, 1538.
There's an updraft there, unfortunately.
10.
There we go. Touchdown. A little hard, but that's fine. Okay. Touchdown. Reversers. Speed brake is out. There's 80 knots. That was crazy. Auto brakes disengaged. Reverser stowed. And yeah, we'll roll out a Charlie on the other side of the ones there. Holy smokes. Holy cow. That was difficult. That was really, really difficult. You're going to see in the replay just how much I was struggling trying to keep my wings level. That was super difficult. And at the very last second, you saw what happened. We had a gust kind of catch the upwind wing, and that lifted the wing on the right side. So that's why we ended up touching down a little hard on the left main landing gear there. That was crazy. That was just absolutely nuts. Oh, and also, by the way, another thing I kind of screwed up on. So I'm always about calling out my mistakes. Not really, but I usually try to call out my mistakes. Notice what I did wrong here? I'm flying this single pilot, right? And so what did I forget to do? I forgot to check my landing flaps. So I had everything else set up correctly. I had my auto brakes set, I had my speed brakes armed, I had my landing gear down, but I had my flaps set to 25 instead of 30. Now, technically, that can actually be a good thing when you're dealing with super gusty crosswinds, having less flaps, but I did screw that up. I forgot to set flaps 30, and I had flaps 25 set instead. Okay, We'll taxi to the gate here, and then we'll check out some replays, okay? We'll taxi to the gate first, and then we'll check out some replays. Does anybody know how well the FlyJsim 727 plays with the default XPlane replay system? I think it plays really well, right, if I'm not mistaken. So I could, like, shut down the engines and everything, and that'll automatically restart for the replay, correct? Okay, landing lights off, strobes off, taxi light on. Yeah, we're doing good here. Southwest guy, sorry I missed you earlier. Hope you're doing well there, Southwest guy. Welcome. Thanks for hanging out with us today. You know what? We're not going to shut down the engines. We'll just park and then we'll check out some replays. I know what you're all here for. I know what you're all here for. You can see the tire smoke there being blown by the wind. That's crazy how strong those winds are. Okay, we'll park, I think in real life, PSA used to be based at Terminal 1 at SFO. We're just gonna park at Terminal 2 instead. So that's where we'll park. Let's get that taxi light off. Okay. We'll park at gate 55 here, and then we'll jump straight into replays. And you folks were calling that landing nice. We'll see what it actually looked like in the replays. I don't think it was that nice. I suspect it wasn't that great. Hey, we got a marshaller. Just gonna scooch forward just a smidgen. There we go. And yeah, there we are. All right, folks. Whoops. Welcome to SFO. Let's go ahead and check out some replays. Let's go all the way back to before the turn inland. There we go. There's the turn inland. All right. So at this point, we're past Axmal. Actually, no, not yet. We were turning onto the localizer there. And I started my turn a bit late because I was doing a bad job of vectoring myself, so to speak. But we're on the localizer at this point, coming up on Axmal, and then I'm going to turn inland here. Somewhere between the San Mateo Bridge, which is that bridge that goes across the bay behind us, that bridge there, that's the San Mateo Bridge, and Coyote Point, which is this little piece of land that sticks out into the bay up ahead. So about midway between those two, you can turn inland. And this big highway that you see going north-south along the bay here, that's Highway 101, the Bayshore Freeway. It's a major thoroughfare in the San Francisco Bay Area. And then there's this other road kind of parallel to that. You see that road below us? That is El Camino Real. Actually, wait. Actually, I think it's this one right here. But anyway, either one of these. It's hard to tell in XPlane because they're not modeled so well. Alright. Nebocha says, considering the conditions, it was alright. A little overshoot in the final, a little float. The float, by the way, wasn't really my fault. The float was an updraft. That was a gust that I caught. And I was just focused on maintaining the speed that I wanted to. So the float was just a gust that caught me at a very unfortunate moment, unfortunately. so that's why we had that float there on right before touchdown. But you can see, right, just how much I'm kind of getting bounced around here. Like I'm sort of constantly applying little control movements. Like if you look at the control surfaces, I'm constantly applying like little control inputs there. Yeah, totally there, Nebocha. No, yeah, totally. You know, by the way, I totally forgot to mention, I meant to mention this, but, you know, the reason I was bringing up the runway length earlier, and as well the wind speed, was because if you think about it, right, your ground speed when you roll out on final let's say we're doing 132 knots, and your steady winds, there's that overshoot there, but let's say your steady winds are 38 knots. Your actual ground speed is 132 minus, about 100, minus about 38, So your actual ground speed is probably 96 knots maybe, right? 95, 96 knots. So that's the reason you don't have to worry too much about touching down long, because you can afford to float a little bit. You can afford to float a little bit when your ground speed is that low, because you still got a ways to go before you run out of touchdown zone, if that makes any sense. So you can see, my God, I'm really kind of struggling here. Kind of getting bumped up and down, bumped left and right especially. Switch into a flyby here. Let's see what this looked like. Yeah, so there's that gust that caught me right before touchdown. And you saw what happened. I had a little gust there lift the upwind wing, which is the right wing, and that caused me to land down a little bit hard on the left main landing gear, the downwind main. But it worked out pretty well, all things considered. Once again, the winds were, what was the winds again? It was 38 gusting to 46. Holy smokes, that's crazy. That's just crazy. This is what the winds were right here, 38 gusting to 46. With the wind shear reported and everything. Okay, let's do a tower view here. Whoops, hold on, too much. There we go, that's better. Alright, let me catch up on chat here. Southwest Guy, no worries whatsoever. The VOD of the stream should be available later, so if you wanted to watch the VOD later, you're more than welcome to catch up on all the terrible mistakes that I made over the course of the stream, such as having a unintentional cabin depressurization issue. You do not want to be the cleaning crew coming into the airplane tonight or this morning to check out or to find out how many live versus non-live bodies we have in back, because we had a cabin depressurization issue earlier, and we had an issue starting the engine, because we had one of the engines, because we had a hung start earlier. So yeah, we had all kinds of typical DJ Aviator issues today. Man, if I'd corrected for that gust that caught me and caught the right wing, I probably would have had a really soft touchdown. But because that gust caught me, it lifted the right wing and dropped me pretty hard on the left main. But otherwise, not too bad at all. Let's take a look at what it looked like on the inside. I want to look at my instruments here real quick. Whoops. There we go. Okay. So right now there's a gust catching me, which is why I'm kind of floating. And then I have, yeah, so you saw what happened there. I got caught on the right side, and then I think the gust kind of, the wind speed dropped back down, which kind of dropped me pretty hard. But it worked out pretty well, all things considered. Okay, let's do a wing view here. Do a wing view. All right. The updraft side effect of high approach speed, but it's necessary because imagine going the other way and dropping out from under you by like 15 knots. Yeah, totally. That's that, and I think I witnessed the worst of both worlds, so to speak, there. So we did have the updraft effect from the gust, but I also, at the very last second, had exactly what you described, which is the wind cutting out. The gust dropped off, and I was just left with the steady wind, and at that point I dropped, kind of like a rock. So you're going to see that here. We'll do a belly cam shot right after this. So there it is. That's when I dropped. It was an eventful flight, but it was a ton of fun. Thanks to all of you for sticking around and hanging out and watching today. This was a ton of fun, despite the misadventures that we always have on stream, right? This was a ton of fun. Okay, I wanted to do a belly cam shot, so this is where we can finally see all the details of just how badly that worked out, right? So there's the overshoot right there. It's super hard judging this, right? Because you don't have any lead-in lights. And also we had a crosswind from the right. So this is one of the trickiest kinds of turns to execute when you're turning base to final with a right crosswind on final. It's one of the toughest turns to execute. But up until this point, like you look at it, I was doing incredibly well. Almost perfectly lined up on center line, doing a really good job of maintaining center line. And right about here, there's the gust. There's the gust. Oh, man. And that's what pushed me off kilter. Let's take a look at it from this view here. I love the sun glare effect off the PBR there. You know, I love how the textures on this airplane make it look old, right? The metal is shiny, but not too shiny. You know what I mean? It's just the right kind of shiny that implies a certain age. And I love that. Yeah, Neboja, that's the other thing too. I was trying to time it so that I would be at idle right at touchdown, but then I did not account for that gust properly. So I ended up at idle still, like, you know, maybe about 10 feet above the ground. Look at that sunrise there. That is beautiful. I was doing so well, and then and then I was done here. I was doing so well. Oh well. Hey, what can you do? Alright folks, so I'm probably going to be back to streaming tomorrow. We're probably going to be back in P3D, and we're probably going to do some flying either the DC-6 or the DC-9. We might do a bit more raw data navigation, you know, have a bit more fun with that kind of like old school, with those kinds of old school airplanes and old school flying. We'll see what I'm in the mood for tomorrow, and that might be a bit more earlier in the afternoon, so our friends from Europe can join in as well. So we might do that tomorrow, and sometime midweek I might hop back into MSFS in the DA62 or something, and we might do some flying in the DA62 and have some fun with that. Let's go ahead here, and we'll queue up some outro music and do one final replay, and we'll call it a day. Where's the replay? So there we go, 309:17. Let's bring it back to about there. Let's go ahead and turn off the, oops. I wanted to turn off the outside sounds. By the way, I don't know how many of you use this thing on the right, the B2 volume control. You know, it's a little plug-in for Fly with Lua in XPlane. Does anybody know how to make it work with the FlyJsim 727? Because I've noticed it does not work, unfortunately, with the FlyJsim 727. I'm wondering if anybody knows how to make it work with this airplane. So unfortunately, I can't control my volumes for my intros, outros, etc. using that. I've still got to go back into my main menu like that to be able to do that, unfortunately. Actually, wait a second. Let's get the sounds back on, because I wanted to do something here real quick. Let me actually turn up the volume here. There we go. I want to listen to the sound of those beautiful engines there. And yeah, let's do some cinematic shots here before we do one final replay. So I want to see what this looks like with the cinematic camera here. That looks amazing. Nibodza, no, not at all, Nibodza. You did not go overboard at all. I appreciate folks coming in to chat and chiming in. That's always very, very welcome on my channel. Once again, thanks to all of you that hung out today. And Bloms, if you're still around, the next time we fly in MSFS, hopefully we can get you to fly along with us if you're free and not working at the same time. We can get you to fly along with us on a group flight or something. We'll probably return to the Pacific Northwest if I do a midweek stream in MSFS, and we'll do the Pacific Northwest two-step shuffle. That's where you fly IFR for the first leg, and then you fly VFR for the second leg. I completely made that up right now. There's no such thing as the Pacific Northwest two-step shuffle. But hey, let's call it that. So we'll probably do that midweek, and tomorrow we'll return to form in P3D and have some fun in P3D. So this is like a custom cinematic sort of like camera movements that I've set up in X Camera, by the way. I think it looks pretty good with this particular airframe. There's that super happy smile on this airplane. And now we're going to watch that smile turn upside down on touchdown, right? No. This airplane remains happy no matter how much I mistreat it. That's what you want to see in an airplane. The 727 in real life, by the way, has a reputation for being super rugged. Nibodza says everyone knows the two-step shuffle. Exactly. but I was kind of joking about the Pacific Northwest two-step shuffle, which I don't think is a thing. I don't think that's really a thing. Okay, folks. Let's go ahead and bring it back a ways. This is at 8:36, so let's bring it back to about here. Actually, let's bring it back a bit further. About there should do it. And I wanted to turn off my sounds here so that we can get some replay music queued up, and we can call it a day, folks. All right, everybody. I want to thank you all so much for hanging out. This was super fun. I know I had fun. I hope you did as well. As always, in the era of COVID, I hope all of you, stay safe, stay healthy, all that kind of stuff. And for those of you that have time to hang out tomorrow, hopefully we'll catch some of you then. We'll probably do another stream in P3D, and we'll have a little bit of fun doing that. Let me cue up some outro music here. We'll probably go with our trusty old Broke for Free as our outro music. Actually, wait a second. Does anybody else want to see a quick does anybody else want to see a quick PSA jingle before we go? We got to do that, right? Obviously, the whole point of the stream was to revisit the glory days of Pacific Southwest Airlines, which had the happiest grinning birds in the sky. So let's do a quick jingle with PSA here before we go out today. So once again, folks, we're flying PSA, the world's friendliest airline.
California, we know you well. We're there when you need us. We're there where you need us. With more flights to more major cities in California than any other airline. So the next time you're flying, catch us. We're PSA, and our business is getting you there for yours.
Catch us, PSA. We're saving a seat for you.
And actually, I realized that was one of the few ad copies I had that actually featured the 727 that we're flying today. All right, folks. Anyway, I really do hope you had fun. Let's cue up some outro music here, and we'll call it a day. All right, y'all. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see some of you tomorrow, I'm sure. Y'all have a great rest of your weekend. If you don't catch it tomorrow, have a fantastic rest of your week. Y'all take care. Stay safe, stay healthy. Blue skies and tailwinds, y'all. Bye-bye.
United 872, heavy low to alert. Check your altitude immediately. San Francisco altimeter 29992. Goes off every time.
We're on profile 29992.
Delta 310, thank you for your patience. Contact NorCal departure.
Over NorCal, 310, see ya.
United 1973, runway 1.